Good afternoon and welcome to the Port Commission meeting for Tuesday, January 24th. We opened the public meeting at 3 o'clock and right away we recessed to an executive session to discuss a real estate transaction. We'll now close that executive session and we'll open the public meeting. Our first item on the agenda is a roll call. Let the record show that all three commissioners are present. And our second item is to go over our advisory committees. We have some acronyms here. The BIAC, the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee, meets on March 29th at the ARF building. That's the fire station at the airport. And the Technical Advisory Committee, the TAC, is same day at 9:30. The BIAC's at 5 o'clock, the TAC's at 9:30. Those are all open to the public. And then we have our Marine Advisory Committee. Their next meeting is Tuesday, the 14th at 6 p.m. and it's held right here in this office. So this building right here in this room, all three of those meetings are open to the general public. And our next item is the public comment period. We would really like you to limit your comments to 3 minutes if you could. We have a timer. When you hear the timer go off, please respect that and end as soon as you can. And we will have one person start speaking and the next person, and it doesn't matter who it is, you can step up there, we'll check you off on the list. Just give your name so we can have it for the record and go to the mic because these are recorded and if you speak from where you're sitting, we can't hear you. So if you'd go to the podium, speak for 3 minutes, and the person that's next, whoever that may be, just take it upon yourself to go stand behind them so we can go through these. So with that in mind, our first person, Renata, am I not saying that right? R-O-A-R-E-N, R-A-N-T-A? I'm sorry, could you go to the mic, please, to the podium, please? Sorry to butcher your name. And anyone's free to go up and stand behind him for the next person to speak.
Cool. This all live and hey, my name is Roran. It's nice to meet you all. It's my first time to one of these gatherings. My comment was mostly centered on wanting to encourage everybody here to just really listen to the voices that people have chosen to come and share tonight, both the people who regularly hold this space and the people who maybe are just for the first time showing up. I recognize that the kind of decisions that are made here can have a lot of influence on a community. Economically, it's really important to have a lot of good organization, and I admit I haven't done much research into it, so I'm mostly just speaking to encourage on you all's own intuition that, all the decisions we make are for the better of the whole community and some way offering steps to move forward into, I suppose, a sustainable atmosphere of economic prosperity, but also environmental prosperity and also social prosperity. And those are really big issues too. So I'm not asking for anything other than what y'all are doing, and it's kind of really trying to help share that there's a lot of people out there who really are interested in these things. I know I myself just heard about this through word of mouth and was very fascinated by the concept that this was being discussed and talked about in an open forum. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So if there is any way to officially, I suppose, just create a call to action that might already be a call on all of our hearts to help do what we can to make this city, this community, a better place for our children and make decisions that we know are going to impact them with that intention, and like that carries through for many generations. And I just want us to all feel that presence. And that's all, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello, my name is Jeff Middaugh. I'm a Bellingham resident, live in the South Hill neighborhood. First of all, I wanted to thank each of the commissioners personally for meeting with a group of us to talk about how to make the crossings within the city of Bellingham safer. But secondly, I wanted to say that I spent 50 years of my life being a professional forester, and I was intrigued by the ports moving out to bring back the softwood log export industry in its own way. And I commend you for having the courage to go with that type of an industry. And we know that in, what was it, October 12th, 1962, the Columbus Day storm that changed the face of the whole Pacific Northwest and altered the landscape more than it has ever been altered by fire or human civilization since. And out of that came a softwood export industry that's been up and down for a long time. And of course, we're not exporting old growth. We're not exporting big trees. There aren't federal logs, at least I don't think they are. But I think it's an intriguing, positive statement to be, because that's part of one of the three things that made the Pacific Northwest and Bellingham what it is today. Coal, salmon, and timber. And there has to be a little piece of it available for us, and it could be something really positive, and that is jobs. So thank you for going out on that.
Thank you for your comments, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Jane Bright from Bellingham, and just wanted to thank the commissioners and the staff for engaging on the issue of train crossing safety. And just to do a very quick update, we are working collaboratively with you folks on two major fronts. One is funding, looking at crowdsourcing, we're looking at federal grants, and we're looking at limited improvement districts, all of which could be funding sources. On the cost side, we are in touch with the Federal Railroad Administration, which is very good at finding engineering solutions that can be lower cost. So this is an active collaborative effort, and as we get information, as we get educated on this, we'll be back. And again, just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brad Owens. I'm president of the Northwest Jobs Alliance. And I'd like to thank the commissioners and everyone who was involved in the harbor land lease with Grand Camp International. We're really looking forward to the family wage jobs that company is going to bring to the area, and it's really going to be nice to see some activity on that property over there. It's been a long, long time. So again, thank you very much. Appreciate your hard work.
Next, whoever wants to start, stand in line. Anyone's welcome. Excuse me, Brad, had you signed up? No, I
Signed up on the sheet back here.
You did, okay.
Would it help if you call names, Brad?
Yeah, I just didn't see it on here anywhere.
The sheet's probably on the
Go
table.
ahead.
My name is Tracy Goodmanson, and long-term Bellingham resident and Southeast Alaska fisherman. We keep our boat here at the harbor, and I just wanted to speak about our forests. Very brief. I feel that we are well past the time when we can pretend that our actions here don't affect what is outside our view and what is outside our lawns. And I believe that any industry that is perpetuating unsustainable forestry, clear cutting, these are acts of ecocide, and this means long-term suicide for the populations of the world, and we have something very beautiful going on here in Washington State. This green, and these are our lungs. These are us. So we should think a lot about whether we want to ship those away from us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Barbara Schumacher, and I live here in Bellingham, Washington, and I am coming to my first port meeting also to oppose shipping raw logs to Asia by Grand Camp and the harbor lease. And apparently you guys have already agreed to that, and I had no idea that it was even happening. And it sounds like it's now complete and a done deal. And I just wonder, I don't know if you answer questions, but like, what happened to the public comment period, or does the Bellingham public have anything to say about like loads of logging trucks going through downtown Bellingham and our forests being shipped to Asia? Because, I mean, I see us at a really critical point right now where we're going past the point of no return for the planet. We know our oceans are polluted, and we're going to have big ships going out of Bellingham. I'm not sure if it's one time a week or how many, but it's just adding to all the ships that are going through Puget Sound. Our ocean is dying. The acidification is killing the crustacean life now, and we're reaching the point of the death of our ocean and the death of life in the ocean. The coral reefs are dying. We're rapidly approaching 2 degrees Celsius climate increase, which is death for the planet. And I don't think we have any trees to spare at this point. I mean, I've been active with unions all my life. I care about good wage jobs, but I think the greatest source of good wage jobs is switching right now to renewable energy, because we really don't have a choice. I mean, your jobs are really important and your life is important, but your grandchildren are too. You know, and I'd like to see my kids live, and I don't feel that way now. I feel absolutely hopeless. I don't feel like my kids have a future. And I think your job is important, but what about our grandchildren? Are they important? Do they count at all here? Like, you guys have this short-term vision that nothing's going on in the world, and we just had the 3rd straight hottest year in the history of the world. And all the climate scientists agree, 98% agree that we're at the tipping point right now. It's going to be all over. And trees, hello, create oxygen. I mean, do we have the luxury to cut our forest here in Bellingham and ship it on logging trucks through Bellingham and out to Asia? I mean, I see that as complete insanity.
Thank you, Barb, for your comments.
Hi, my name is Madison Ruppel, and I'm a student at Western. I lived here, it's my 2nd year here. I'm originally from Federal Way, Washington, so I've lived in this area my whole life. I also am upset about the lack of community involvement I feel was put into this decision. There was what I find to be a troubling lack of transparency about it, because there was no public commentary period given to the lease agreement. I consider Bellingham my community now, even though I've only lived here a relatively short time. I love it here. I love the environment. I love the people. And I feel like this decision has a lot of long-term impacts for us, and I would like to see the port work with the Washington Department of Ecology to find out the impacts of this lease on our bay cleanup. And I'd also like to see work done with the Forest Stewardship Council to create an environmental impact statement. I find it a little irresponsible that this port has agreed to this lease without the proper research and consideration. And I would like to see more transparency in the future with these kinds of things, because I am troubled by the lease. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy.
Hi, my name's Izzy Saylor. I'm also a student at Western Washington, and I'm part of a student group called Students for the Salish Sea. And I'm here to advocate for the protection of our local salmon populations in the face of this threat to their safety. Forests act as a key guard against soil erosion, and I'm concerned that logging in Whatcom County will adversely affect our salmon spawning habitats. Salmon and forests are 2 essential parts of the Pacific Northwest ecology, and threatening them means threatening the health and biodiversity of our region. The proposed truck route will travel through Squalicum, Squalicum Creek provides habitat for coho, chinook, chum, steelhead, and cutthroat. The fish population and habitat in Squalicum Creek has declined due to bacterial contamination, excessive channel erosion, scintillation, visible oil, and scum. Increased traffic on Squalicum Road will further threaten these populations. Furthermore, for centuries prior to European contact, salmon served as a basis to the trade and economy of the native peoples of the Northwest, as well as for spiritual and ceremonial purposes and as a food staple. Today, wild salmon are still considered a totem figure and cultural icon, a vital marker of coastal identity, history, ecological harmony, and community. I urge you to review and prioritize the treaty rights of the Lummi Nation and the negative effects of logging on salmon populations.
Thank you very much. Izzy?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lena Hemmer, and I chose to speak with you today because I'm really concerned about the issue of over-harvesting in our forests. After I was reading over the lease, I realized that the amount of logs moving through this facility will largely be dependent on Asian markets' demand and not the needs of our local terrestrial ecosystems. Many of our local ecosystems depend on the preservation and sustainability of the forest systems themselves. So this increased logging will lead to a loss of habitat, increased soil erosion, sedimentation in our rivers, and as my peer said before, this is gonna have a big effect on our salmon, which is a huge part of our economy. But not only will this overharvesting impact the Watkins biota and all the animals that live here, but it's also going to change the perceived relationship that the community has to our natural lands. 2 years ago, I flew all the way out from Chicago, where I'm from, and I visited Western's campus, and I fell in love with it immediately. I decided to move my life here, to dedicate my life to the environment and be in Huxley College, and to know that we're willing to take away the trees, to take away our identity, an identity that I now have that I never had growing up, it breaks my heart. It's sad. And I don't think that taking away the trees is going to help our economy. I don't think it's going to make out-of-state kids like me want to come here. I mean, that was that drive. That was something I wanted. And I think Western's campus is a big part of Bellingham, and that in connection to the environment is something that we could lose. And I don't think it's worth the cost. So, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Hi, my name is Shiloh Britt, and I just want to thank you all for being here. I am a member of a local union as well as being a student at Western Washington University, but in my opinion, most importantly, I am a fourth-generation Bellingham resident. I'm very proud of that, and my grandpa worked at the Georgia Pacific site for about 30 years. I could not speak to the union or the Western's ideals or what they're feeling. However, I can speak on behalf of my family and the lessons that my grandpa told us growing up. They all stood around the same: do not go near GP. We did things that were illegal, we did things that were wrong. Go near GP and you will get sick. He actually blames his dementia on GP. I don't know how true that is. And my mom was a reporter for KVOS TV 12. You guys may remember it, it's been like 20 years. And she has the same lessons for me: do not go near GP. She can recall doing stories of people that fell in the toxic waste around the GP site. And what concerns me is that this Grand Camp lease that there's so little public involvement in is going to be on that same site. Are we not concerned about the safety of this new leasee? Or we're just going to put a cap over it? I don't understand the thought process behind this, and I'm genuinely concerned not only for their future in Bellingham, but also ours. We need some kind of solution. There's so much mercury and just horrible things, chemicals in there that are not going to get any better unless we take care of a long-term solution now. And I urge the commissioners to consider that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Shiloh.
Excuse me. Afternoon, Commission. Darren Williams, Whatcom County resident, and no stranger to some of you. So I believe I'm rising for at least the fourth time to publicly speak in front of you on this issue. So the comments alluding that there hasn't been opportunity to address this, I think, are a little bit false. I'm also rising today as an individual, coming to speak my mind as a resident of Whatcom County, because I am interested, not because I'm part of an email tree or a phone tree for a call to action. I've been here repeatedly talking about, and it's right up there on that board, to fulfill the essential transportation and economic development needs of the region. That's what the port's here to do. Now, the port does have some parks, but they're not a park department. The port has an environmental department, but they're not the Department of Ecology. The port is here to develop the essential needs for transportation and economic development. And that's what we need to focus on. And we do need to do it properly. And I believe this commission over the last 4 years has done a fantastic job of that. They have made reasonable choices on cleanup. They've made reasonable choices on infrastructure. They've made reasonable choices on pursuing customers. That's what we need, is a reasonable approach to essential transportation needs and economic development of the region. That's what you're elected to do. And I think you've done a good job of it. I support the action on the lease, and I support pursuing other customers that will do business on that terminal for my own sake, as well as other people in this audience and in this community, many of which cannot get here because they're working. Like the guys that are working on the terminal right now, on the stormwater control, which is an enhancement to the environment, controlling whatever toxins may occur. We can do all this, but it can't be black or white. It has to be reasonable approaches down the middle. And I think that's what you're elected to do, and make those choices. Everybody has a right to speak, and they bring up great points. We have better water because environmental activities have done a great job. But you've heard me say before, we're at a point today where we can't do anything unless we have their permission, because it is an industry as well. I want you to keep that in mind when we move forward and we make reasonable decisions on reasonable proposals, and there is reasonable public access to it. Like I said, today, this is the 4th time I've spoke to this. And most recently, just on the 3rd of January, I was here and spoke to it. Not because I was on a phone tree, not because I got an email, but because I paid attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
Hello, my name is Tally Johnson, and I'm a student at Western Washington. I'm here to ask you to reconsider the impacts that this lease agreement would have on our community. Not only does this lease impose a series of environmental threats, but it threatens our local economy in many ways as well. One of the prominent ways that this would affect our local economy negatively is by exporting our local sawmill jobs. By exporting unprocessed logs to a market that can pay more per log, local sawmills will not be able to compete and will be seriously threatened. I would like to know if the port has asked our local sawmills about their opinions and concerns before making this decision, and if not, I urge you to do so thoroughly. Another concern is the impact that an average of 20 logging trucks per day moving from Squalicum to Roeder to Cornwall would have on local business. There are many local businesses that are located along this truck route that could be negatively affected by air pollution, noise pollution, and traffic from these trucks. The weight of logging trucks, about 80,000 pounds each, takes a huge roll on toads and actually grinds gravel from roads into a fine sediment which, when brought to nearby creeks in runoff water, will threaten the health and reproduction of fish in Squalicum Creek, one of our only salmon-bearing creeks in Bellingham. I would like to know if the port has asked our local businesses or our local fisheries how they feel about 20 of these trucks passing in front of their businesses every day. You are here to represent our community and make choices based on what would be best for our community. I have read that Grand Camp would be creating 36 jobs with the lease agreement, but myself and many others know that the economic and environmental costs of this agreement would greatly outweigh the small amount of jobs that would be created by it. I am concerned that this decision does not reflect or represent the wants and needs of our community as a whole. This is a decision that impacts us all, and I find it irresponsible of the port to make such a decision without proper community input. I urge you to, as our community representatives, make the right choice by terminating this lease agreement and fully representing what our people want. Thank you.
Thank you, Tally.
Hello, my name is Izzy LaValle, and I am a student at Western Washington University. I am here today to ensure that the restoration of our bay is executed as needed. It is widely known that Georgia Pacific facilities dumped wastewater containing mercury and multiple other toxic pollutants directly into our bay for many years. When you, the Port of Bellingham, acquired the waterfront property after their facility closed, you accepted responsibility for the toxins and responsibility of cleaning it up. Leasing the former GP site will inhibit the necessary cleanup process that is long overdue, especially after the final completion of the $25 million Whatcom Waterway cleanup and current ongoing $1.5 million GP cleanup. There are many of us that are concerned about this. How can you make it clear to us that cleaning up the bay is your priority? Furthermore, if logs are stored in the acquitted acres for designated water pond storage, as well as that transportation and sedimentation, our water quality will drastically degrade due to the sedimentation from that raw timber and the transportation of that, further degrading the potential to regenerate a vital and biodiverse marine ecosystem. We live in one of the most rich regions with regards to natural resources. From our Douglas firs to Dungeness crabs and Dall's porpoises, from our cedars to cephalopods and sea lions, we have such potential to attract more life, more jobs, health, food. I would hate for us to jeopardize this unique home by making rash decisions that base our markets on exploitation of these resources and wonders for a short-term profit and a small amount of jobs. Let us learn from our history of pollution and make better choices for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Izzy.
Hello, my name is Melody Rudiger. I'm also a student at Western Washington University. I'm concerned about the implications that this lease agreement will have on climate change, both because of the fossil-fueled shippings that these logs would take place and because of the inseparability between deforestation and climate change. Trees, forests, plants, and forest soils act as carbon absorbents. These are some of the only things that help us mitigate the serious damage that has been done on our climate, and they are being threatened by this lease. I find this decision to allow Grand Camp to export our raw logs to Asia to be short-sighted and irresponsible, because it will only threaten the state of our climate more, when what we most need to do right now is figuring out ways to lessen our impact and work towards creating economic systems that are good for our communities in the short term and the long term. I urge you to consider the impacts that this will have on our community, our environment, our health, and our economy, not only for 10 or 20 years from now, but 100 to 200 years from now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Melody.
My name's Tyson King. I'm a fourth generation here in Bellingham. And I'd like to talk about the impacts with the shipping coming up, the positive impacts, jobs, money, the coffee shops, the small businesses in town that right now I can't afford to go to because I don't have a good job. I don't have a living wage job. This will give us jobs. And as to the environment here, like the gentleman earlier stated, logging, coal, fishing, that's what brought everybody here. And this place, you look at the environment around here, it lived through all of that, and it made it what it is now, and where we are now from that. And the climate change. I've been a student, I went to college, I've learned this planet has been hot and this planet has been cold. It's gonna change. Nothing we have done made it freeze or made it boil. It does it on its own. So, and regardless of what happened or what may happen, what we need to live in is where we're at now, and we need jobs. And I just wanted to come and say thank you for putting us back to work and putting the port back on the right track.
Thank you, Tyson.
Hello, my name is Ben Petropoulos. I'm a resident of Bellingham. I was wondering, am I allowed to ask questions at this time? Okay, yeah, because I don't have much for comments because honestly, I don't know very much about the issue. And to be honest, I wouldn't be here right now asking these questions if I was able to find these out on my own. So I was just wondering, on the issue of the soft log exportation to Asia through Grand Camp, where are these logs being harvested from, and who owns that land?
Yeah, I can't tell you exactly where the logs are going to come from. They'll come from all different markets. Some will come from Canada, some will come from Washington State. I think the preference here, too, is to limit the comments to 3 minutes, not to have a major discussion. I think we could be here all night if we're going to go back and forth.
Right, and I'm going to try to keep this to 3 minutes. Where might I find that information?
Where the logs are coming from?
Yes.
You probably have to talk to Grand Camp, and I think that's a changing scenario. I don't think they'll ever come from just one place. He'll get them wherever the markets determine.
Okay, so it's up to Grand Camp where these logs are coming from.
Correct.
That leads me to my next question. Where might I actually find more information on Grand Camp? I have tried extensively to look this information up myself. And,
The lease that we have with Grand Camp is on our website. You can find it there.
Okay, could you give me that website right now, please?
portofbellingham.com.
Okay. And my last question, where in Asia are these logs being shipped to?
There again, it's going to depend on market conditions. He has the ability to ship them anywhere he wants, not just Asia.
Okay, and that information will be on the lease that I can look up?
No, we don't put in our lease where he ships logs to.
Okay.
These logs could be go to anywhere in the world, not just Asia.
Okay.
Some of them also could be shipped out of here and stay in the United States as well, out of here by barge. So it's not necessarily all Asia.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. That was quick. I'm Jim Kyle, President of the Working Waterfront Coalition of Whatcom County. Our members, the membership is composed of 113 maritime companies of all sizes. I think all of our members I could characterize as working environmentalists because we all depend on a healthy ocean. And I believe that things are different now, and when a project like this happens, everyone's concerned about the environment and habitat, and there are regulations that require close attention to that. And I'm confident that all parties will be very aware of actions that are necessary to minimize any environmental degradation. So having said that, recognize the importance of a healthy ocean to our membership. We support the Grand Camp lease. We think it's a wonderful thing that we can return some business to the shipping terminal, and hopefully that is something that will create further opportunities and more good jobs, and we thank the Commission for taking this action.
Thank you for your comments, Jim.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Reese. I'm a resident of Bellingham. You know, the next sentence on this page over here says, while providing leadership in maintaining Whatcom County's overall economic vitality. My understanding is that the Grand Camp will provide 36 jobs. Is this true? Is this about a right number? Well, I talked to somebody at a sawmill today, and I asked them how many people work in their sawmill, and they said 60. So when you think that each of these log trucks holds, let's say 5,000 board feet, times 20, that's 100,000 board feet of logs that are not being eligible for family wage jobs in Whatcom County. And I seriously question the wisdom of presenting the Port of Bellingham as being one to detract from the jobs of the sawmill owners. Now, I'm certain the sawmill owners would absolutely support family wage jobs for people who work on the docks. It's certainly not that. But my point is that there are many family wage jobs that are being lost. And so what does that mean? That means families suffer, not just individual people. And so part of my concern has to do with certainly the leadership potential of Whatcom County and Bellingham to set up this lease to increase the economic vitality. And the trees are being logged probably as we speak. If the logs were in lumber formation rather than raw timber formation, there would still be jobs. And it's my request that you back off from this lease and provide the people of the sawmills who's, have been here for generations. Now, I myself am not for forestry. I think there needs to be much less cutting of logs. And there needs to be some truth integrated into the models that we set up to decide what we cut and where we cut. Because we only have a computer extrapolation from a model. We don't have actual numbers of what kinds of trees, what sort of endangered species may live in a certain area. So I think this is a hasty decision and needs to be backed off from, and the family wage jobs that would go to the sawmills need to stay there. Thank you.
Richard, thank you for your comments. I show one more person after this. If there's anyone that didn't sign up that wants to speak, you're welcome to get in line.
Good afternoon, Doug Tolchin from Bellingham. Haven't done as many leases as all of the port, but I guess I've done over 100 leases, so I have a little bit of experience in that area, as a landlord here and elsewhere. And I share many of the other concerns that have been expressed, and I'll follow up with a letter with those. But there's one kind of economic point that I have as a question and also a comment. I see in the lease, which I have here on my iPad, that the lease rate, you're leasing about 5 acres of the waterfront land to this company for $1,000 per month, per year, per acre. Okay, and I sometimes rent parking space in the parkade. I've been charged more for one parking space at the mezzanine level of the parkade for a year than you're charging this company for an acre of prime waterfront by the shipping terminal for a year. And how does that make sense? I mean, is that good for this community? I mean, just on a purely economic, without even getting into environmental or other things, on a purely economic basis, that is the worst economic lease I have ever seen in my life. It's the worst. And not for subsidizing a good use like solar panels or something like that, but you're subsidizing deforestation. I did a calculation, it's not in the lease or in your information, but you know what? You're subsidizing the deforestation of several square miles per year of these hills out here. Giving away an acre, 5 of them per year for less than 5 parking spaces at the parkade. That's absurd. And if you have some response to that now and show me how I'm mistaken, that would be great.
Thank you, Doug.
I have a response.
Okay, that'd be great.
Number one, we don't know if we're deforesting Whatcom County, period. Most of these logs are most likely going to come out of Canada. Number two, for the people's information in this audience, I'm one that generally likes to speak up, so I'm going to speak up. You folks are pointing at us like we're the state and federal agencies that handle what can be logged or cannot be logged, what can be cut or not be cut, and we are not. Okay? We're not charged with that. So a lot of what you're pointing towards this commission needs to be pointed towards the state and federal agencies if you're concerned about where the logs are being cut, how much is being cut, and where they're going. That's not our job. Our job is what this mission said to do, create jobs and do it properly. There's been some things said here about that property over there about how it's going to kill you if you walk on it. Well, I've been walking on it for 60 years, and I look pretty alive. You folks are making charges against this commission, and some of them are unfounded and unwarranted. I believe the lease numbers you just spit out are not incorrect, and I might have Rob Fix speak to that.
Yeah, it's far more than 1,000 per acre. You're also not counting the full package, which has dockage and wharfage in it as well. So I'm not going to sit here and debate lease rates with you. I believe it's $300,000 a year or so in land lease, and your numbers would indicate they're getting 300 acres, and they're not. So
This here, the non-PMA land, the land part, not the aquatic lease, which is for half that amount, which I didn't comment about, but right here in your lease, it's right here. It's $1,000 monthly lease rate per acre per year.
again, you're not counting the dockage and the wharfage that the port will realize revenue. You have to look at it as a complete package, not just one piece of the agreement.
Those are all variable and may or may not ever happen. But here's a lease for $1,000 a month per year. It's not right. It should be redone. You should issue, I formally request that you terminate this lease for that reason alone is sufficient and start over. And by the way, with the benefit of a public hearing. I've watched this process for some months. This was fastballed, put on the agenda in late December, had a hearing January 4th when everyone's on vacation, and you passed it. That's when you do deals that the public don't like, in Christmas and New Year's. You didn't do a public hearing. I was here when Forest Ethics, Audubon Society, others, and I've also watched on the video, asked you, if you ever think you're going to do this, do a public hearing first, do it in the public's business and the public's view, particularly on this issue. You were requested by leading organizations, and you fastballed at the end of the year. There should be a public review. I formally request you terminate this lease with a 90-day notice, start over, do it right with the benefit of a public hearing and input, and let's talk about that issue. And there's a lot of other issues with this that I don't like. I'll send you a letter. But this is not going to stand. Thank you.
Schmidt, lifelong resident of Whatcom County. I just want to commend the commission and executive director for getting some revenue flowing across that dock. It's what we need, what we've needed for a long time. And this will bring more stuff, which will probably bring more debate, because no matter what you bring down there, there's going to be opposition to it. So just keep driving hard. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you for your comments, Joe.
Hi, my name is Nicole Brown. I live in Acme, Washington, in the South Fork Valley, and I live right up against all the logging roads and the salmon streams. I'm also an owner of an organic farm out there and a professor at Western Washington University. I don't know if you know about the watershed group that's meeting out in the South Fork Valley right now. It includes loggers, farmers, recreationists, environmentalists, residents, and it's going to be quite a long process, and we're all coming together and we're talking and we're trying to find interesting ways that we can kind of just slow things down and come up with comprehensive plans for how our bioregion could honor many of the elements that are kind of in the port missions, in addition to other more advanced ways of going about community planning, more future kind of ways and current ways. And so I just ask you to kind of look at that group, because I'm surprised that you don't know where the logs are coming from. You don't know where they're going. You seem kind of, maybe, I don't know if you've spoken to local sawmills, but all you have to do is Google Pacific Northwest sawmills logs, and it's all the headlines are why sawmills in the Pacific Northwest would prefer finished lumber rather than raw logs shipped to China, and that's being discussed. So it just seems like this proposal is kind of being done in this kind of siloed way, which is an old model of thinking. And I'm just wondering, when your mission statement was written, that's an authentic answer, because it seems really dated, and we're always revising vision and mission statements and goals, and it seems like maybe there's something to learn from the people in this room. And that brings me to the students, and the way that some of their comments I feel like have been dismissed by community members, claiming that they're showing up because of a phone chain. They show up because they're learning about this place, and they're learning about solutions, and these are going to be our future leaders in these positions that hopefully are going to be revising these kind of processes that are clearly failing based on the divisiveness in this room. And I'm sorry, but fishing, logging, and coal may have been what brought your families to this area, but there's a lot of other families showing up now, and it's not for those kind of opportunities. It's for this more forward-thinking opportunities and the potential and the draw that the waterfront has. and Grand Camp, one more thing. They don't exist on the internet outside of your lease agreement, but I Googled them and I found something, and the headline is the deadliest industrial accident in history. Now, granted, this was 1947, but that's the only thing you can find about this company online, and this is where you're putting your, whatever it is, you're investing in this future. There's no website for them. The deadliest industrial accident, and it was a ship explosion. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Hi, my name is Jamie Douglas. I'm going to be talking to you on a completely different subject. So here's a little break of pace for you, I guess. Okay, as we start 2017 here, I'd like to see the port engage throughout Whatcom County with the other agencies in order to try to promote general internet access. This is an important infrastructure need that we have throughout the county. And one of the things you have is we have some very good internet access in spots, but you don't have to move very far around until all of a sudden it drops off to nothing. This has a huge impact for businesses. It has a huge impact for attracting new industries to our county. We educate a whole host of people that have no chance of getting a job in this county. They have to move someplace else. If you get a computer science degree and computer security, you've got a very limited opportunity to get a job here. Outside of computing, there's not an industry around that doesn't need internet access in order to operate. This also applies to families, to students, and that. It's not just the businesses, but it's the consumers. You can't go around here where you don't find somebody having a question who doesn't whip out a phone and try to access the internet to figure out where to go to a restaurant, where to find a business, or where to do something. So having access to the internet here is really vital. I want to really try to encourage you to not say, well, this isn't quite fully in our box. But as a new infrastructure technology, it's something that you guys need to get engaged with and get more fully engaged with the other stakeholders within the county so that we can make this happen. Because there's a critical mass that can be reached that can actually reap huge benefits economically here in Whatcom County. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie.
Hey, Dodd, would you grab that fella?
James,
Jamie, if you could come back with me.
Yeah. So if you could contact me, we are doing some things, a new initiative on that with a couple other ports that just started this year, and I'd be happy to tell you what we're doing and get some of your thoughts on that. So
sure.
I'm pretty easy to reach.
Yeah, in fact, I can give you my information right after the meeting here.
That'd be great.
I'd love to do that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? There's two others signed up. Did I miss Edward Uri? And after that, Chris Johnson, or did Chris speak? No. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Edward Uri of Bellingham, and I'm only going to speak on my own behalf tonight, although I think you're aware of some of my affiliations with resources in the Blue-Green Waterfront Coalition, which we serve on in collaboration with the Northwest Central Labor Council, AFL-CIO, and Jobs with Justice. We haven't taken an active position on the issue, although I hope no one gets mad at me for saying that. Really, I mean, no one's excited about this, because when we're talking from an economic standpoint, this is small potatoes. And you know, I don't envy the position you're in here, having, your predecessors made some bad deals before, leaving, the public with hundreds of millions in liability for toxic waste cleanup from past projects. That's left us with kind of this stalemate for economic development on the waterfront, which really is some really prime real estate, which we're fortunate to have. It's never going to look like it did before the industrial development that came through, but it's, we have a rail spur and a pier here, and some prime land for what we hope to envision to be an economic source in Bellingham and Whatcom County for family wage jobs, light impact industrial, non-polluting industry. And the iTech solar panel factory that's moving into town, or rather moving locations to the waterfront, is the perfect example of the kind of thing we envision for the waterfront that can make use of the access to the rail spur and the pier in a way that is part of the future and isn't just going to leave us with more financial liability in the future from pollution. So when we're looking at this logging proposal, or rather this lease for the shipping to, was it Grand Camp? Granted, people have brought up just how sketchy that company sounds. On its face, let's be real, people. You think that routing 25 truckloads a day through downtown Bellingham is going to be good for our central economy here, for the central business district? You don't think that the issues of traffic and air pollution from all the diesel smoke coming out of those trucks is going to have some kind of negative impact on our core shopping center and all the other great breweries and venues and things that are popping up around that area, and the revitalization we're hoping to see in the downtown area? Now, I know this is a short-term lease. 5 years have it, so 4 or 5 ships a year, what's the big deal? But there's an opportunity cost when projects like this come along. And you put one thing in place. How is this going to affect, say, if we do manage to get the MOTCA funding for toxic waste cleanup that you're all lobbying for, that we're supporting you in, actively trying to get that this year, and say if we are able to achieve those goals and start to get some cleanup efforts going, how is this going to interfere with that? And how is it going to stall us from, say, when the right time and place comes along and there is an investor, a real company that wants to come in and do something that's going to have long-term growth and real jobs down at the Port of Bellingham, or the Bellingham waterfront, rather. So it's just things to think about, and I guess it's just kind of disappointing because it feels like we keep just taking really bad deals out of desperation. It's like we're left in this tricky situation, left holding the bag, and here comes some development, and you sell off the land for nothing to a foreign developer to come and do something that's not really what the best use of the land could be. And I'm just saying. All those impacts aside, the economic and health impacts of the trucks alone and the shipping, even if we're to look beyond the logging, I think that warrants some more extensive environmental review. Granted, you made a lease decision, but if I think that there might be some things that get reopened, and it might be something for might require SEPA EIS review. So I'm gonna over time here, but I'm gonna keep having conversations with folks, and there may be room for action later. So. Thanks for your time, though, and I don't envy the tough position you're in, and it's no one's going to be happy at the end of the day, or not everyone is. So, but yeah, thanks for all the work you're doing.
Edward, thank you for your comment. Chris Johnson, did Chris speak?
No, it's all right.
And you want to be scratched off, okay? If there's anyone that came in late, didn't get signed up, wants to speak, you're welcome to. If not, we'll close the public comment period.
You mind if I take a couple minutes on this?
Oh, that's all right. Here.
So the format's clunky to people who don't know how organizations, especially how ports work. So normally this wouldn't happen. I'm going to make this really quick because it's not my meeting. It's Dan's meeting. I'm going to run through a quick list of points. I'm not going to start a conversation, but I am going to ask for a conversation when, at some point in the future. I read something, or I saw something today from a congressman who's retiring. His name is Steve Israel, and he said this, and it kind of struck me because I knew some folks were coming out this afternoon. And he said, letter writing is interesting, email is interesting, phone calls are good, but there's nothing more valuable nor spontaneous than showing up at an event that a member is at and asking them, why did you vote a certain way? So I'm glad you all came today, and there's a really long conversation we have to have that we're not going to have today. I'm going to address a couple of things super quick, because it seems like a lot of people don't know what ports in Washington State do and how they operate, nor how this one operates, because I'm seeing a lot of new faces today. The vehicle trips per day question came up, and I think we have a number. I think I asked, what's the, is Sylvia here? Do you have that number for me? Where you at?
286 is what it used to be. PM peak hour trips, that's just 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening.
All right, so a lot of you are familiar with no traffic because you haven't been here that long. And we have accounts in our master plan of 286 trips per day. That's just once per hour. and how many? Vehicle trips. Now, remember, this isn't a conversation. I'm just going to quickly address these, because otherwise we'll never leave, and it's not my meeting. Can you make it fast, Sylvia? Okay. Thank you, Dan.
That was in the Ports EIS for the waterfront when GP was operating, or in 2007 when we did the EIS, there was 286 trips every morning in the 1 hour peak and 2 hour, about that same in the evening, 1 hour peak.
Those are vehicle
trips.
trips, and those are peak trips per hour.
There was no differential between trucks and cars. That was just vehicles.
But we can assume some trucks went to the factory, because it was in fact a factory. Which is not a conversation, thank you. Truck route, the truck route is a very long established truck route. It's probably older than I am, and I'm 46. So concerns about the truck route are valid, but that truck route was long established. It goes from I-5 down Squalicum, up Rotor, and over to that waterfront. It's been there a long time. The trees are coming from private landowners. They're not publicly owned trees, because you can't ship raw trees from public land. The bay cleanup is going forward as planned. This doesn't change a thing. So one of the valuable parts of leasing land to somebody who's storing on a very short-term basis something like logs is that when we go to clean it up in the future, you just move the logs. So bay cleanup is going just as planned. The citizens of Whatcom County wanted a terminal here. Now, I wasn't here, I wasn't taking that vote, but the citizens spoke up quite clearly and quite loudly. And when the master plan was adopted in 2012, that was one thing that was included, the shipping terminal. Let's see here. The land lease valuations, Doug, you brought that point up. The port here is audited every year by the state of Washington, and every single land lease and what the valuations of those leases are goes through their scrutiny, and it's totally in line with what every other port in the state of Washington would do with property just like that. So if it seems low to you folks, it does seem low to me too, but that's exactly how it normally is done. Let's see here, trees, bay, and this one is a struggle. Not a lot of people know this, and I think our ILWU reps out here probably know this. This is an incredibly difficult property to lease for reasons just like this. We have said no in the last 7 years to 8 different companies that would bring even more jobs than this particular one because it wasn't a good fit for downtown Bellingham. Every one of those was a legal, useful use, not a big whole port like Cherry Point, but something that would fit down here with our limited length and our limited depth and our limited land availability, because it wasn't a good fit for downtown Bellingham. We cannot make investments, the millions that we are in a shipping terminal that the people of this county wanted, and then turn away everybody that wants to come here and use it. It's really difficult, but we're trying. I'm just going to finish right now because I know I'm kind of talking, I'm speaking. It's difficult to have a conversation because I'm up here on the dais, right? And I want to have a conversation with you folks. So I'm going to invite everybody that signed up or maybe watching, contact me, 360-201-7199. Let's get a meeting. I can tell you what ports do, how this port operates, what ports can't do, and there's a lot of questions out there about how that all happens, and then we can go from there. But I'm going to ask everybody that's here tonight to do us a favor. When we turn away business because people are complaining, it's easy for people to say, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. So I'm going to ask you folks to do something for us. I want to see more certified forests in the state of Washington. About 3% of the forest land in Washington state is certified. 52% of the land in our borders is forest land. Help us. Don't complain that we're not aiming this properly and we're not doing this and we're not doing that. I can't make a demand to a company that they go buy certified forest products if it doesn't exist. That's a way that we can make a huge impact, and this kind of conversation wouldn't even come up. So when I have a conversation with you folks, give me a call, we'll set it up, and I will support you if we can start a conversation regionally about getting more certified forestry. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Commissioner
My name is Commissioner Mike McCauley. This is Commissioner Dan Robbins, and that is Commissioner Bobby Briscoe. Our picture's on the front, and you'll see us at the Port of Bellingham website.
On our website are all of our phone numbers, and you're welcome to call any of us at any time.
There you go.
Commissioner Briscoe.
A couple short things. Something I'd like to pass on that I'd like to see more people in this country do. I'm great you're all here. I respect your views. Believe me, I do. Some of your concerns are very genuine. I'm a commercial fisherman. The ecosystem is very important to me. I'm the 5th generation in this town. My family came over and started the pulp mill. My great-grandfather did. So when you come to a meeting like this with your issues and your questions, come with a solution for the problem we have. There's 3 of us sitting up here trying to do the best job we can for Whatcom County. And we have done a lot of research. This isn't something we fireballed through the system. There was 4 meetings on this before it was ever signed in. Many discussions over months between the staff and ourselves. When I came to this desk a little over a year ago, just a little over a year ago, the first 3 months I was here, I had numerous timber people call me, wanting to know if they could bring their timber to town here to try and get it to one of the local mills out in Everson, and trying to find some place for their timber to go because they had no place to move it to. So the question of whether we're starving our sawmills or not, I don't believe we are at this point in time with what we are doing, because we have excess timber available locally, some of it from the islands and some of it from north of the border. So we didn't just make a decision to do this lease just because there was a lease to do. We looked into things, and I spoke to the fact that there's state agencies and federal agencies that are supposed to be managing our timber, and those are the people that are supposed to take care of that end of that, and we take what their job is, that they're doing it correct so that we can do our job in the proper and legal way. I don't want to rape our mountains and our forests. That's not my intent. My intent when I came here was to put our working waterfront back to work. As Commissioner McCauley spoke, we have turned down several things trying to find a fit. Now, you can't please everybody all the time in this world. But when we sit up here, we try to do the best job we can for everybody. And what you said today didn't fall on deaf ears. I've sat many times in an audience like this with federal and state people, and I've been speaking to them, and you get that feeling that they're ignoring you. I didn't ignore anybody here. I may have gotten a little bit upset. I'm a pretty emotional guy about some of the comments because they were unfounded. But please understand, we're trying to do the best job we can for everybody and get along with the environment and do the best job we can with that, because it's very important to all of us. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Commissioner Briscoe. As you can see, my definition of sustainability is when the environment and the economy are in balance. And you can see how difficult that is. You've heard both sides of the issue today. And we take this job very seriously in looking at anyone we can get at our shipping terminal that fits. We do want jobs here. As you saw, that's part of the mission of the port is job creation and job retention. And so for that effort, that's the reason we look at every possibility that would fit well in the community. And I thank all of you for your comments. We are going to have another public comment period at 5:30, only for those who have not spoken. And that in hopes that anyone that was working that couldn't be here could speak again at 5:30. But once again, thank you for your comments. Anything else, gentlemen?
No, I do appreciate folks showing up, though. Thank you.
Mr. Briscoe, anything else? Hearing nothing else, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Diane, if you could read our...
If I may, a lot of folks, because our work is typically pretty boring, if you want to go, now would be a good time.
And you are welcome to stay. You're very welcome to stay. Railroad crossing. Let's just.
We gave it a second.
Yeah, I met today this morning. Nice people.
We have the consent agenda here. No, I was going to put the consent agenda back up. Do you want it up?
Yeah.
You folks are welcome to stay if you'd like. You don't have to go, but it is kind of boring.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Huh?
So give me a call and I'll walk you through how all that works. Absolutely.
Yep, thank you.
So if any of you folks need a phone number or whatever, on the front desk in the office, there's a lady in there. There's a card rack there with all of our cards on it.
Our meeting, and the next item is our consent agenda. If you could please read the consent agenda.
A motion to approve consent agenda items A through E.
Thank you, Diane. Gentlemen, do you have any questions on the consent agenda?
I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Briscoe?
The vessels we're selling. And we've got 2 sailboats and then that 79-foot purse seiner in Blaine.
Item
Question, when we sell said particular vessel, that purse seiner, is it not coming back to our harbor?
Correct.
It won't come back?
Well, it depends on who buys it.
Well,
Typically, these don't sell when they're in that condition, and so then the port scraps them, so they don't come back.
I guess maybe we as commissioners at some point need to have a discussion about vessels we're selling when they're in derelict condition, if they are sold, where they remain.
The only time we get to discuss that is in public hearing, so I guess we discuss it now.
What do you mean?
Well, okay, we've got this vessel in Blaine, okay, and we're going to sell it. So I've seen in numerous harbors I've been in, they sell the boat, the next guy gets it, and you've got the same program. I mean, it just keeps rolling over. At some point in time, save the taxpayers dollars, we're going to have to make a decision, and we sell a vessel, we decide what condition that vessel's in, and if it warrants keeping it in our harbor when it's repurchased, that's fine, or no. I don't know, Frank, is that something we can decide?
Commercial boats have a Coast Guard survey, right?
Huh?
Commercial boats have to go through a Coast Guard survey. So if they can't pass Coast Guard survey, why are they in the harbor?
Well, you can be in the harbor and not pass Coast Guard.
Okay.
So is that something is that a rule we can put into effect without any kind of discrimination or anything going on, Frank?
Commissioners, you have authority under the port statutes to lease the public's property for any purpose and under any terms and conditions you deem appropriate. And so you have complete discretion to set the rules. I don't have the marina rules and regulations in front of me, but I think there is some discussion of seaworthiness of vessels in order to remain in the harbor as well. Short answer, complete discretion, Commissioners.
So in the mariner's terminology, what we refer to when we walk through a harbor is we've got boats with umbilical cords, and if the cord's cut, you're in trouble, is what I'm speaking to. If you don't have 110 volts plugged into the pump running, you're going to be picking it off the bottom. And that's become quite extravagant cost to deal with this day and age, and the pollution factors. So I would suggest that we mull over possibly putting a new harbor rule into effect, that at the port's discretion, when we auction a vessel, the tag we attach to it is once the vessel's sold, you've got so many days and the vessel goes away. Would be what I would suggest we do to try and stop some of the dollar cost issues.
Even if it's a good seaworthy vessel?
No, this is what I'm saying. It's up to our discretion to decide whether that vessel is seaworthy enough to keep in our harbor. Because ultimately, we're responsible for it.
So we would do that on the recommendation of our harbor master?
Yeah, one of
A harbor master and maybe a panel from the Working Waterfront Coalition or the MAC. I mean, recommendations from other folks. That's not one person.
So I'm in this new delegation mode, so I'm gonna delegate you to form a working group. You want to chat with
Why don't port staff put something together to recommend to you all?
And I think we do have a committee that handles that type of thing, and it is the MAC. I mean, we have a committee in place that covers these things, and so maybe it's an issue
Maybe you could
we want to bring up with the MAC.
You want to sit with Alan and work some ideas out, and then we'll mull them over later.
I just wanted to bring that up while we had that on our page for now. And other than that, no, I don't have any other questions.
Absolutely, Commissioner. Alan Birdsall, manager of Marinas, would definitely like to be able to take this up with you and come up with some sort of policy that we can bring back to you and talk to you about this.
And Craig,
in the future.
congratulations on your new position.
Yes, thank you very much.
You get an extra bottle of aspirin with that headache?
What the case, yes.
Can we borrow them?
Okay, other than item C that we talked about, are there any other questions?
No.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, our next item is a economic development update presentation from Dodd and John.
You know, it's hard sitting over here after being in the middle all year.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dodd Snodgrass, Economic Development Specialist for the Port.
And John Mitchner, Economic Development Specialist with the Port.
So we're here to provide an economic development update over 2016 activities.
Just a quick reminder, we do serve as the Associate Development Organization for Whatcom County, 39 counties in the state of Washington. There are 34 ADOs. We're one of 4 port districts that has this contractual relationship with the Washington State Department of Commerce to provide these services countywide.
In our 2016 port budget, we had a certain range of objectives, and the presentation we're going to provide today is going to cover these areas where we've been involved over the course of the year.
So retention and expansion, business retention expansion, this is sort of the home where we mainly live, due to the fact that the majority of new jobs to any community come from businesses that already exist in that community, taking care of who's here. They've already made the decision to invest in your community, so we do what we can to make sure that they stay and grow as fits them. Something that's been really fun this past year, at the state level, they have sector lead folks, and we've reached out to them on a regular basis. And as you can see, I've had a number of them. We've hosted them up here, toured them around the county, taken them to companies in their sector, if you will, obviously, and let them know what we have here, so that when they see opportunities at the state level, we're in that pipeline to continue that conversation. Another quick one, Impact Washington. We're going to hear a little bit from them later on another item that's coming up, but that's been a great partnership with those folks. And then the Team Whatcom collaboration with all the groups in the county, the Technology Alliance Group, Chambers of Commerce, Whatcom Business Alliance, among many others, where they've really come together this year and are continuing to work together on ideas going forward of how we can all market the county together as one unified voice.
Just to add in addition, the company visits, what that's involved is basically reach out, often cold call. Typically, there's manufacturers, corporations, the larger corporate offices, technology companies, and we go and we meet, get a tour, talk about issues, and we do a follow-up, and that's what we'll be spending some time this next year.
Before you go, John and Dodd, go back to the last slide, the
Sure.
Team Whatcom collaboration. So this used to be called the Practitioners. Is it all the same membership?
It's just bigger.
It's bigger. So, John, you just said something about speaking with one voice. So how is the Team Whatcom part, which is now bigger, I didn't know that, how is that working versus what the Practitioners used to do?
That's a great question, Commissioner. Ongoing, we've had a subgroup, a marketing committee that's been meeting, putting together exactly that. What is that going to look like going forward, so that every member of Team Whatcom, and ideally members of our community, all have the same good stories, if you will, about what it is to do business here and what a great place it is to live. So that's an ongoing process with this sub-marketing group, putting that together that will then come up to the entire team Whatcom and go forward from there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm going to dig into it deeper later, though, but that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
Not tonight, though.
So this is one we're obviously very aware of, and a great example of working with a company that's a local one that is growing. Dodd and I first met iTech Energy folks back in November of 2011 and have continued to stay in touch with them since that time as they've discussed growing and what that would look like. And then obviously we came to the commission last year with a proposal about the 800 Cornwall building, which came to fruition back in December. And that's going to be a really great addition to the waterfront and keep these folks in Bellingham. We've reached out to them since then and have found out that they were being heavily recruited by Henderson, Nevada, and also the folks down in the Medford Rogue Valley in Southern Oregon. And the reasons they gave for staying here were retaining the workforce they have and getting the training they need to continue to improve their workforce, having a suitable building that we could work with them with to get them to move into. And then the state also has some solar incentives where if you install panels and inverters that were made in Washington State, you get an incentive on that regard. So for those reasons, they stated it's a great success story. The other one I kind of want to point out here is American Nettings and Fabrics. These folks were one of our revolving loan fund clients, and it was kind of touch and go for a while. It was tough working with them, but they really dug in, got their act together, and since that time, they've paid us off in full, so we're all good on that. And they've working with a commercial lender, and they are building their own facility out in the Delta Ring Park out in Ferndale, North Ferndale. It's been 7 or 8 years working with these folks, but here they go. At this point, they're going to really be able to expand their business and go.
So we're always looking forward where we're going, and we're tracking. We don't know everything that's going on in Whatcom County economy. We do our best, and other people know things are going on, but we know of more or less 25 companies that represent 2,000 plus jobs that have said either in the short term or looking down the road that they want to grow, they want to expand, they need a new building, new site. And so we're checking in with them, and we want to make sure there are opportunities from the stay here in Whatcom County. So a few, we're calling these hot prospects, but we have a machine shop, it's actually pretty well known as a larger machine shop here in the county, and they're growing, expanding, and so we're in discussion with them about land and opportunities to expand their facility. Custom Home Builder is, we're in discussion with for them to make a move. And they're food manufacturers, that's a big segment of our local economy. So we have Chuckanut Bay Foods is a company that's in Ferndale, and they're looking at a new location. Post Foods, which was the company up in Blaine that manufactures peanut butter, they Post acquired their company, and so they've talked about expansion. And American Freeze Dried is a company just off Portalway in Ferndale that does freeze drying of fresh berries. They use local berries, strawberries and blueberries, and they're flash freezing them. And they're actually supplying markets like the cup of noodle soup or berries that they had been exporting those berries to other overseas for processing, and they're doing more of that work here. And then Preferred Freezer, that's the company in Linden, that the large cold storage facility that let us know they're going to add another 130,000 square feet and some more jobs, and so that's another big investment for Linden. So we're looking forward to that over the course of the year.
And the other piece of it also, obviously, is recruitment. We do get out and do a lot of this too. And this gives a quick snapshot of where we might find inbound investment inquiries coming from. Currently, that's 34 last year. We've had 2 to date here in 17. And they come from all over. And, we always say, you never know who you're talking to, what they might be representing. So we're always, giving the good news story there. Of these 18 we're working on that are showing some promise, if you will. 10 we were told no, and sometimes you don't know why they say no. We actually did find out today one of the companies at the last minute, it was a Canadian food processing company, at the last minute their local folks came up with a better idea for them to retain them and keep them where they were. So that was, and sometimes that's how it goes. And then about 8 of them are currently sort of on hold, waiting for more information or timing on their part, that type of thing.
So Live Leads, you've heard about our Indian cheese manufacturer. We'd like to bring this up because this is a contact we made 6 years ago, and we've been working with them through this process. And they've got a location in Bellingham cold storage. They're in the process of doing some equipment acquisition, and so that's still on track. It's just taking a little bit longer, and that's about 15 jobs. We're in touch with a bike component company. It's actually out on the East Coast. Bike component recreation, as you know, that's an important sector of our local economy, and more of these kinds of businesses are looking at not just the sales aspect and getting out and enjoying the outdoors, but we want companies that are making stuff. So there's a company that's currently eyeing Bellingham, and this is another company we're in touch with. There's a business involved with plastics manufacturing, looking at a corporate office. Soup stock maker actually used to be in Bellingham many years ago, and they're shopping around about reestablishing the company and coming back. And then this is this year, so it's not quite 16, but we have a plastics injection company that's actually in another location in the state. What's curious about this is the owner got in touch with us, and basically for lifestyle reasons, he'd like to move to Bellingham, buy a house and get established. And there's a succession plan with his company. He's going to take over the company, and he thinks getting the company over here eventually would be a smart move. So he may start with a warehousing or some sort of corporate office. And this could be over a series of years. It's not going to happen this year. But we made that contact. We have a good relationship with him, and we'll stay in touch. So Commissioner McCauley, you talked, Team Whatcom is also represented through our Choose Whatcom website. And this was a strategic objective during 2016. We accomplished this. We created this website. The idea of Choose Whatcom, choosewhatcom.com, it's a portal where you go, and we've got all the different groups that serve the business community. Some 13 different groups that, from SCORE, if you have a business idea, Sustainable Connections, which serves sustainable business and those practices. We're all meeting monthly, and we're coming together, and we want to use this website as that entree to Whatcom County and talk about doing business here.
Marketing side of things, a snapshot of the ways we are getting out and marketing the county. Obviously, trade shows, we do quite a number of those. Working with our folks upstairs, we put together some pretty cool BLI posters. We'll show those. We have a picture of those coming up. And then looking more at a Seattle strategy as they're getting built out and built up in Seattle, we're hearing more and more that, some folks don't, just out of college, you might not mind living in a micro apartment, working for Amazon. It's a cool thing to do, but if you get married and have kids, it doesn't work so well anymore. And working on that line of thinking that at some point we think we're going to get somebody up here, especially on the new waterfront redevelopment or development with the big office building. It's high on our radar to see if we can find some kind of a tech type firm that would be willing to step up and move into something like that. So we're always looking for those types of opportunities. And then I did mention the Team Whatcom. That subcommittee was that marketing committee that we had put together working on that.
Hey, John, I've got a friend who's made a local contact in regards to what you just said. I'll make sure and connect you all up.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, they're doing something big down in King County right now.
Great. So there it was. Yeah, these are the trade shows we did go to last year, from Vancouver to LA and points in between. The one slide of Globe 2016 that was sort of interesting, that's the Prime Minister of Canada that came strolling by our booth up there. And the gal speaking to him is one of Greg Bose's attorneys that works for Greg. And she went up and introduced herself. It was pretty cool.
Of course she did.
And then going forward, 2017, these are things we're looking at doing. Again, a lot of them are going to be the same trade shows because that's how you develop business out of these things. You get to know the folks that are there. For example, the where is it? It's a contract manufacturer show down in Bellevue, and we've gone a number of years. And last year I was able to hook up with a company called Simplex. They're out of Surrey, BC, and we went up and met with them, and they said they're definitely interested at some point maybe coming down here and opening up an arm of their facility here. But right now, he said they sell a lot into the United States, and a lot of their United States customers are paying them in US dollars. And he said, we can exchange, he said, no, we don't care. So he's getting a 20% boost just by selling to the States. So he has no business right now moving down this way, but he's definitely monitoring it. But that grows out of trade show relationships and talking with folks.
So those are fancy in-house posters that we made. Put those up at BLI. Marie Duckworth helped us secure some space. So those are, you'll see those when you're going through the TSA lines and in the passenger area.
Hey, can we put those in the GA terminal too?
Sunil here, I think we've leased out the GA terminal to the FBOs, the fixed base operators.
Hey, Sunil? He's not here? He's here? Not here.
Well, I'll find out.
Can I put in a request that we put it outside on the sidewalk and then somehow make the doors not function very well? So you have to sort of
Stand there
slow
and look
down.
at it. There you go.
That building's really short. People just fly right through, so. All right.
And we can talk to the FBOs about putting this up too.
They may be happy.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Put it on the door so you can stare at
It just, and then make it really hard to open the door. So.
Following along a little bit of the digital, the print advertising we did this year, local publications to, again, keep the word in the local community, what businesses to do here, and so they can spread that word. We also did a digital marketing campaign in Lower Mainland back in October, covering the cities that you see there on their, mainly there were newspapers, but this was their digital websites, where we wrote sort of a faux story, if you will, about have you thought of doing business in Whatcom County and why it's a great place to do business, sort of opening up that relationship and starting down that road. Tagging on to that, I've negotiated with the folks at the Surrey Board of Trade, which we are members, and starting in February, I will have a desk up there where, depending on demand, I can go up as needed, or we have a set day every month where I will be in their office. So anybody that's looking to do business down here, just general information, starting that conversation, I'll be up there with them to carry that out.
So there's a list of some of the local collaboration efforts. A lot of time we're going to chamber meetings, different organizations, and promoting what the port can do across Whatcom County. Big part is making sure they understand that we have that economic development responsibility, not at port property necessarily, but anywhere in Whatcom County. So some of the things we're continuing, the Small Cities Group, and Commissioner Robbins has been attending those, and we enjoy working with the mayors, and we have a cost share program. We're also going to be putting together a funding resource event here in a couple of months. Team Whatcom, we actually coordinate that effort and work collaboratively with that group. We value our local relationship with different groups. We're underwriting Sustainable Connections Food and Farming event, which is coming up in February 8th, I think. So we underwrite that with some dollars. Recreation Northwest and the Expo, that started 3 years ago. We're into that the second year, and they've added the summit portion, which is really important because it's talking about this recreation economy. So we're a strong supporter of Recreation Northwest in that effort. Technology Alliance Group has a Tech Expo, and they have basically a jobs event. We financially support that. We're going to be doing a procurement program with the Small Business Development Center. So some of the local groups we support.
Yeah, one other one, actually, this morning I was down in Anacortes with the Northwest Ag Business Center, Jeff Volz, who runs it here for Whatcom County, and it was an access to capital program with Whatcom and Skagit counties with folks that might have business counseling. The SBDC folks were there, and then also if you have a loan program that might help a manufacturer get going. So we work with Jeff quite a bit, and a bunch of our loan clients have come through him at the NABC. Another quick note, too, that I've worked with the Lummi CDFI folks. It's a Community Development Finance Institute. It's a federal dollars that has been put together out at Lummi. They're their own 501c3 to administer these funds to make loans to the tribal community, to create business, create jobs, and educate what it takes to do business, how banking works, that type of thing. And it's been fairly successful. There's a couple of great stories that have come out of that too, working with those folks.
So I'm excited to come up and talk about what's been going on in the Technology Development Center. That's our 10,000 square foot corner of the F Street warehouse that was constructed about 8 years ago. Within the last 2 years, things have really picked up down there. As you know, if you've been down there, Western and Bellingham Technical College have collaborated in the space. They work in the space jointly. There's over $500,000 of equipment invested down there. VTC is running its composites engineering program. It's in its second year. They've got 28 students down there. They're going to be up to 52 next quarter. And so these are students getting trained in composites engineering. It's a high demand area, and we want to ultimately get these students graduating, get those jobs here for them. So Western's made incredible investment in terms of their oversight, supervisory role, in terms of their staff commitment and what's going on at the TDC. And the big news within this happened basically over the Christmas period is the Foundry Makerspace, which has been on Forest Street, downsized. They relocated down there and are collaborating with Western. The Makerspace, if you're not familiar, it's a makerspaces around the country. And it's basically a movement where you go and you have an idea, you can innovate, you can use equipment, sort of do it yourself. They're also called hack spaces, I think, different terms. But Mary Keene runs the Foundry, and she's incredibly passionate. And there's a strong following of folks, and so there's also a strong educational element with what they're doing, reaching out to K-12. In addition, Western has the Idea Institute. Art Sherwood is the director of that, and they started an Idea Lab, which has been set up down there, which is student entrepreneurial programs. So I think you all been invited to there's an event on February 2nd, and I encourage you to come down there. You see actually what's happening, and so we'll keep building on that and coordinating, but it means a lot of activity down there and further results.
Just generally, too, operating, the operating divisions here at the port, that we're always here to provide support as needed. And it's been a really great year in that regard, where I was working with Dan Stahl quite a bit before his departure for Longview about what it would take to get new clients down to the BST, and we're continuing those conversations about that. And then real estate marketing, ITech is a good example of that, where the only building in the county that would come close to meeting what they needed to get done was the port building that we had, and we were able to bring that to them, to our real estate division, and hand it off to them and get that deal done. And we're continuing to do that on a couple of these other new projects that we're working on, that we might have some ideas that, again, not to exclude any other properties in the county. We scour the county, but sometimes a port property is the best one for the business, and those kind of conversations will go forward with our real estate folks. That's it.
And we brushed up our 100 things made in Whatcom County. Maybe a couple things dropped off, a couple things got added, but overall, the manufacturing economy has been really strong in Whatcom County. It's been something like 30% growth since the end of the recession. There's 10,000 jobs in the manufacturing sector, and it runs the gamut. And it's not just $10-hour jobs where people don't need a lot of skills. There's technology involved, so workforce training, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, is paramount to basically having a thriving manufacturing sector. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Hold on. Any questions?
ITech was mentioned earlier tonight, and we talk about them a lot, actually. So ITech gets bits and pieces that were made from raw materials that come from around the world. One of them is aluminum, and I know that there's been some push to have our local aluminum manufacturer provide them with extrusions that will work in their facility. Is that still something that's even talked about, or is that one just totally off the table for real?
Well, we have the HR manager for ITech Energy. I don't want to put her on the spot because Dave McCart, the CEO, couldn't be here today. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you speak at the mic, please?
So you don't have to.
Well, that's all you need to do unless you want to speak. We just want to be able to hear it on the film. Thank you.
So good evening. My name is Michelle Simmons, and I am Human Resources and Community Outreach with ITech Energy. And your question was regarding our framing materials, I believe?
Yeah, you buy aluminum, right?
We buy aluminum, that's
correct. It'd be nice
correct.
if we could buy it here instead of wherever you're
At
getting
this
it.
current moment, I believe it is a U.S. sourced product.
Yeah. But not a Whatcom County source product.
Not a Whatcom County sourced product.
So what would it take to get a company like that here? I mean, I'm sure you're buying a lot, but is it because we had a similar conversation around galvanizing a couple of years ago, where there are a lot of people that are galvanizing stuff, but there may not be enough interest in this particular county to support a galvanizer in Whatcom County. So do you think you will be buying enough that you could support somebody that could make these frames for you?
I believe the investment for the specialized machinery is extensive.
Yeah.
So you would really need to have a broader spectrum of facilities that could utilize that.
Can you just make more panels, please?
That would be fantastic. Would you like some?
Yeah, actually. That would, yeah.
If we could get solar panels on everyone's homes, we'd be, growing in leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I think you have to go, the aluminum foundry has to give their extrusion to another manufacturer. I don't think.
No, they just,
Alcoa
they're
is-
not, they don't want to do it.
That's, billets and
Yeah, they just,
out of the area first.
I mean, they do some specialized stuff out there, but I think to get the finished framework product you need, that has to go to a framing company.
Correct. And I don't really want to be quoted on anything as far as where our manufacturer is receiving their whole goods from, but it could possibly be an Alcoa
You
product.
could tell us and they'd have to kill us. That's
Possibly.
Thank you.
All right, well, maybe someday. Thanks for that.
Commissioner Briscoe, did you have any questions of the gentleman?
Very good presentation. Thank you. Very informative. And good work, guys.
Did you have anything more, Mike? No. Commissioner McCauley? I had a quick question. American Net, the manufacturer fishnet?
No,
Or
great question.
batting cages or?
They make garden netting, and primary customers are vineyards for shade cloth. And you can get 50% shade cloth, 75%, 85%. And one of the things we were able to do by loaning them the money we did with our revolving loan fund, since grapes are a very seasonal product, they were able to expand their business into South America, into Chile and Peru, to sell their products down there. So now it stabilized their cash flow, stabilized their balance sheet. So now they're a year-round production, and off we go.
And so that's basically the only netting they're making there?
They'll make deer netting and stuff you can put over trees, fruit trees for birds type of stuff. They make some small products for the home gardener, like yellow, they look like a trash bag, if you will, but you put over your tomato plants and your tomatoes grow really well. So you can find them at the retail level as well, but the real driver of the business was the shade clothing for the vineyards.
How big's that new building?
It's about 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a $1.4 million investment, so.
Okay.
Should have built it with lumber, but I guess it's a new building, so that's okay.
Thank you very much for
Thank
the
you.
presentation. Our next item
like
is
trees.
an action item.
You want to do public comment? We're at 5:35.
Yes, excuse me, let's interrupt that with, excuse me, we'll go back at 5:30. We start with the public comment period. Anyone that has not spoken today that wants to speak? Anyone here? Zero. Okay.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Sure, take a 5-minute break.
Thank you. Severe headache.
Okay, we'll resume our public meeting. Once again, anyone that came in late wants to speak? Okay, we'll move to our first action item.
I signed up for the public hearing.
You spoke at the first one, did you not?
Well, since you called me up, I figured I'd take the opportunity, but I signed up to speak about the districts.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet? Yeah, we're not there yet.
Can he speak during the districts? Oh, yeah, that's an open public. Yeah, that's right, we're going to open that up. Okay. Action item number 1. If you could please read it, Diane.
A motion to authorize the executive director to execute the 2017-2020 collective bargaining agreement between the Port of Bellingham and the ILWU Maintenance Union Local 7, including any necessary budget adjustments.
And good afternoon, Commissioners. Elizabeth Monahan, Director of Human Resources. I am very pleased to present this agreement for your consideration. It's a tentative agreement between the Port and the ILWU Maintenance Union. So this represents 20 of our employees over in our maintenance department. First of all, I'd like to thank the bargaining teams. We had a couple new members on the team. So for the Port, I was Chief Negotiator. We had Lindsay Burmeister. We had Carol Williams, our Maintenance Manager, and Adam Fulton, Director of Facilities. For the union, we had Ian Gray, who was the president of the union. This was his first time at the table, and I think he had a lot of fun. We had Riley Vandehay and Jerry Balzer also at the table. So the negotiation sessions were extremely productive, and we got this deal done. It's a 4-year deal. We got it done in 6 negotiation sessions, which is extremely positive, and the attitude at the table was really exciting to see the collaboration and the willingness to work together. So just a brief summary of the items that are mentioned in the action memo. We agreed on the healthcare, the current healthcare plan and the current premiums. We expanded our probationary period and put some additional language in there. We standardized some of our language on our extended bank of paid time off so that it allows employees access into that a little bit easier than previously. We created a lead pay for any technician in level 1 through 4 that's leading seasonal grounds people, 3 or more seasonal grounds people. They get an additional 2.5% pay because it was described a little bit as herding cats when you've got that many seasonal grounds folks. So a little extra money to keep them interested in leading those groups. And then for wages, we agreed the tentative agreement with 2.5% starting January 1 of 17, 3% January 1 of 2018, 2.5% January 1 of 19, and 2.5% January 1, 2020. It is a 4-year agreement that we have in front of you. The union has ratified it. They told me it was a unanimous vote, which is really exciting. So I'm very pleased about that, and staff recommends your approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Commissioner Briscoe, any questions?
Glad to hear that everything was unanimous, and I guess I'd ask Darren for a nod of approval on everything, you guys?
Not from us, from everything, they do their own thing, and everything that they've told me is they're very happy. So they're responsible for their own activities. They're happy.
Right.
We need a mic if we're going to speak out there.
Local 7, but Local 7 doesn't join them at the bargaining table. They represent themselves.
No, I figured he probably got some kind of feedback, and I just wanted to. And thank you, Elizabeth, for your.
You're more than welcome to speak if you, okay. Commissioner McCulley.
No question.
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Our second action item, if you could please read it, Diane.
First of all, I need to let you know that there's a typo on your memo. It should be 125,000, not 124. So I'll read it as corrected. Commission motion authorizing the executive director to sign a grant contract for $125,553 workforce training with the Washington Department of Commerce, amending the 2017 economic development budget to increase both grant-related expenses and grant revenues in the amount of $125,553 and approving a sub-agreement with the Impact Washington to provide workforce development training to iTech Energy.
Good evening again, Commissioners. Dodd Snodgrass, Economic Development Specialist. So we talked about iTech Energy earlier. We know the story and their growth and expansion. Along the way, they knew that they were going to have to face, retaining their workforce and growing it. And so workforce training, skills enhancement to keep their production costs low as a consideration. So they connected with Impact Washington, and Impact Washington is a nonprofit company here in the state that's affiliated with the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program. It's very versed in lean systems and different sort of workforce training programs, a lot of experience. They brought us into the conversation as not just the port, but as the Associate Development Organization. And we looked at a funding source through the state, through the Strategic Reserve Account, which is managed by the Department of Commerce. And in order to apply for the funds, the port needed to be the applicant. So we worked in collaboration with the company, with Impact, as well as Bellingham Technical College and the Northwest Workforce Council. We applied and we were notified in December 22nd that that amount was awarded. So before you today is the grant contract with Commerce. It's their standard contract, essentially says the work will be completed by June 30th, 2017, about 6 months. We'll get full reimbursement for the state for the training costs. There's no match involved. There's some reporting involved a year out after the training's complete. And there's some certain performance standards about meeting the job creation and retention goals. Along with this, we have a sub-agreement. So obviously, we're not a training entity. Impact Washington has the curriculum. They worked it out. So we have a sub-agreement that basically puts those responsibilities on Impact to complete the grant requirements, and we'll basically be the project manager and fiscal agent for the project to support iTech's job retention and growth. And the goals, they've got 85 current employees roughly, and 25 to 40 new employees are anticipated to be hired. So with that, you met Michelle Simmons earlier, the HR coordinator for the company. Steve Winters is here, who's the regional account executive for Impact, and I'd like Steve to explain a little bit about Impact and about the training program so you understand the scope of the work.
Thank you, Dodd. So I'm Steve Winters. I'm with Impact Washington. I'm the account executive for my territory is Everett to the Canadian border. A little bit about the Manufacturing Extension Partnership program. So there are 50 MEPs throughout the United States, and we're the one for the state of Washington. It started back, the Department of Agriculture had the Agricultural Extension Partnership to go out and help farmers grow crops and do things more productively. Well, the Department of Commerce, about 30 years ago, kind of picked up on that and said, well, why don't we develop a manufacturing extension partnership so we can go out and help manufacturers compete globally? And so that's what we do. Basically, my mission in life is to keep jobs here in Western Washington. And how are we going to do that? We're going to help companies do it better, cheaper, faster through more efficiency. We train and consult companies with lean manufacturing. We do facility layouts. We help with TWI, which is training within industry. It's what manufacturers did back at the beginning of World War II when all the men went off and went to war. Well, they had to train a whole new workforce in job skills. So they developed a program called TWI. So we will be doing specific training to the solar manufacturer, iTech Energy, on the process of manufacturing solar panels. So they've got a facility that's over in Iron Gate now, and they're going to purchase a new facility here on the waterfront, and they're investing $5 million in new equipment. So how can they transfer those job skills from the equipment that they have now to even more modern and efficient equipment that they're going to be purchasing to put in the new facility out on the waterfront? So we're really excited about this project. We're excited to work with Dave McCarty and Michelle. We've got a really aggressive training schedule. We've got $125,000 worth of training that needs to be completed, and that will help to improve the workforce skills in this area and give living wage jobs to more people. And it's clean, renewable energy. So it's all pluses, and so I just would like to recognize Bellingham Technical College as being a partner within this project, and for Northwest Workforce, Gary Smith has also been a good partner, and then Dodd and John have been instrumental in helping get this grant approved through the governor's discretionary fund. So just really excited about getting this project going, and so I would just ask for the commission to approve the executive director to approve the contract with Impact Washington. Any questions?
Thank you, Steve. Commissioner McCauley, no questions? Commissioner Briscoe? No questions. I have none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And did you want to say anything again? No? You're good? Just happy to be here.
Thanks, commissioners.
Yeah, I do thank all of you involved in this. This is really good. It's that's what it's all about. I love your mission, and so thank you again. So, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Let the record show that passes 3-0. Could you read our third action item, please? Diane?
A motion to approve a modification of lease and real property purchase and sale agreement between Teal Jones Lumber Services Incorporated and the Port of Bellingham.
Thank you, Diane. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Terry Leahy, Real Estate Representative. Teal Jones has been a port tenant in Sumas, occupying about 5 acres since 2004. Right now, to remain competitive, they have acquired 4 drying kilns and a wood-fired boiler house, which will also generate about 1.2 megawatts of electricity. They do not have any space on their current site and are looking to lease approximately 9 acres to the west of Bob Mitchell Way. This modification would allow them to do that. The modification also allows them a 90-day no-rent period to get the site ready and to be able to install their equipment, following which the monthly rent will be $7,349, which increases by 1% in the year 2018. The modification also reinstates an option to purchase a 5-acre site directly to the east. This option is about $1,000 a month and for the term of the lease. However, should they decide to exercise the option, then half the rent or half the option payment they have paid to the port would be credited towards the purchase price of the property. With the current expansion of the 9-acre site, they're looking to employ an additional 20 to 40 employees on that site, and then increased shifts at the planing facility on their main facility. We recommend certainly approval of this modification. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions, Commissioner?
I have a couple. The $73.48.95 per month, the $1,000 for the option is above that or included in that?
That is above it.
It's above it, okay. We had a question from a young lady, I think she stepped out there, but for clarification for her, she can watch later. This company receives the raw log product from Canada, and then in Sumas, they produce the finished product there. It stays in Sumas, correct?
That is correct. The raw product comes down from Canada. It's raw sawn. It goes currently into a facility just south of this to be dried. They have drying kilns down there, and then it's shipped across the road where they plane it and finish it, and then ship it back, yes.
But they don't receive logs here, they receive cut wood.
They receive cut wood, correct.
Rough cut wood.
Rough cut wood, yes.
Okay. No, that's it. Thank you, Terry.
Commissioner McCauley?
Yeah, there's always been this issue with that reinstated 5 acres option or land right there in the lower corner. What's the last time we talked about that 5 acres, the issue became it's wetlands. So what's the idea that these guys think that they can pull off the?
In the future, they are looking at adding maybe a finger jointing facility or something else to that to expand their business. And they are aware, we've provided them all the information on the property, but they still wanted to get the option back to be able to acquire the property in the future if needed.
All right.
Does the option cost them anything, Terry?
$1,000 a month.
Wow,
Do exercise the option, then half of that payment would be credited back towards the purchase price.
Isn't that 5 acres currently leased to the go-kart track for parking?
That was a short-term deal, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that same line of questioning, does that preclude us from doing, they have an option to buy, but if we have someone that wants that property, they either buy or we can sell? Or does that lock it up so we can't do anything else with it?
Currently locks them up. It locks the property up with them, yes.
It's not a bad idea.
Huh? For $1,000.
Don't freak out. How long has this land, that 5 acres, been empty? A long time. It's a challenging site. You get $1,000 a month. These guys can expand. If I was going to build in Sumas and I needed a property, I probably wouldn't choose that one given the others that are available because of the constraints on construction there. So on this one, it doesn't really bother me personally that they're going to lock that up and we can't do anything otherwise with it. So I'm okay with that.
So under that option, can they sublease to somebody else if they want to? How does
It's
that
not
work?
under a lease to them, it's just an option agreement. So they could either purchase or, well, basically they could actually purchase the property at this point.
And they can't sublease without our permission.
It looks like in this photo that somebody mowed the grass. Is there a local farmer that's harvesting hay?
That would be the Port of Bellingham crew who goes out there and mows.
How about we put a free sign up there that says, you take the hay, you got to mow the grass? Can we do that? Is that legal? Frank, can we do that? I want to do the same thing at the airport, except I want orchards down there, so.
We want to know if we can give our grass away,
It's
Frank.
5 acres. Wow, it's probably not.
If it has no value, you can give it away.
It has no value.
Sure. I mean,
Value? Does hay have, well, hay has value.
no, but you mow it now and throw it away, right?
Yeah, so if we told somebody they could come in and cut it and have it.
You'd want a little short agreement with
How
them.
much does it cost us to mow 5 acres of grass? Or 3 acres, maybe, 3 acres of grass?
I would have to check
Where's
that, I
Adam?
don't know.
Well, I know it's going to take 2 people, a truck, a trailer, tractor, right? It probably takes them all day to mow 3 acres of grass. There's got to be a farmer, I'm sure there's a farmer just off the picture over here that can mow that grass. Anyway, just an idea. Try to save money for you, buddy. All right. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
And this option is an extension, is that correct? They were paying for this first new?
Excuse me. In the original lease, they had the option for this site. That was then removed, and on the last modification, we added an option for the west 9 acres. At that point, there was no payment for the option.
Okay.
We have now included a payment.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions, Commissioner?
No, it's nice to see, because I remember just a few years ago, Teal Jones was having issues just paying their lease, so this is nice to see that they've weathered that storm and they're interested in expanding, so it's a good deal. Good deal for Sumas.
No more questions.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Let the record show that passes 3-0. Okay, we have had our public comment period, so now we will recess the public meeting for a public hearing on the Port of Bellingham Commission districts.
I think we've got one gentleman wants to comment, but let's have Frank do a brief presentation first and then.
Yeah, and actually, we have two.
Two. Okay, my apologies.
Three.
All right.
Okay, there it is.
Do I hear four? Do I hear four?
Commissioners, Frank Schmelik, General Counsel for the Port. So in 1992, a law was passed which originated with then Senator Harriet Spinell from Whatcom County that required port districts that were coextensive with the county with a population of less than 500,000, where the county had 3 commission districts, to use those districts. So before, the Port Commission districts were actually divided along an east-west axis, so they were stacked. Anyway, this is the county council districts. There's another law that requires the county council or a government that is not bound by the law like the ports are to redistrict every 10 years after the census, so 2010, 2020. And the county did that. They redistricted after the census. They used the census data. So then in
2016, along comes the county and they go to 5 districts. So now the port is no longer a countywide port district. Well, it still is a countywide port district. It still is in a county with a population less than 500,000, but it no longer is in a county with 3 county council districts. My best analysis is it doesn't matter because you don't have to do anything till 2020, when then you would become a government that would use the current census data in 2020 and redistrict, or keep the same districts, or however you do it. The PUD and the port are going to be in the same boat in 2020. All the other districts, fire districts, everybody gets the same data and does the same work in 2020. However, this situation where a county changes from 3 to 5 was not contemplated in the statutes. And so the auditor called us and the PUD and said, could you affirm that you want to use the same districts? Again, I don't think you need to necessarily affirm it, because I think it was done for you in 2010 when the statute was in existence. But out of deference to the county auditor, we published notice, which is the requirement in 29A, the Title 29A, which deals with elections. And then at your next meeting, we'll ask you to reaffirm or affirm essentially these districts. And I have this graphic for you that shows you what would be used in a look at this. Again, I'm not sure you have to look at it, but we're trying to be cooperative and cautious. But these are the 5 factors that all governments look at under the law when the, I'm going to butcher the word, but decennial census comes out every 10 years. So you can look forward to having this on your agenda, irrespective of anything else you do in 2021, because the census is done in 20, and I understand it's published late in 20, and then the governments have 45 days to act after the census data is published. There are companies, by the way, that go out and do all this. They give you 4 or 5 different varieties of districts that meet the requirements, and then you make the ultimate decision.
So Frank, the point you just spoke to, these districts, you guys notice I have to drive the furthest in my district? How fair is that? We need to redraw this. Anyway, these districts, just for the sake of ease and argument, the port has always followed the 3 county council districts.
Since 1992.
Because they were setting the districts, 3 commissioners, 3 districts.
We were required by law to do that.
Easy to follow. But the port can draw districts any way we want, so long as they meet the statute, which we can.
That is a different question than I'm here today with. At any time, any of these governments can redistrict. They can go through a process where they meet these requirements, A through E. It is within your sound discretion. It requires a public hearing, and then it requires all 3 of you be present at a vote. You can do that anytime you want. You can do it as many times you want. There are limitations on how soon you can do it before an election, so that obviously so people know what the rules are. The other limitation is no matter what you change, you can't shorten the term of any sitting commissioner, right? So they all get to serve out their terms.
Darn.
So
You just got here.
So, but this is just kind of a housekeeping issue, if I will. I understand the PUD. I have that on good authority, that the PUD is going to act in the same manner, just to kind of say, okay, auditor, it's an unusual circumstance. We're just going to affirm it and move on and move on. But you're right, Commissioner. Anytime you want, you can go through the process to redistrict if you'd like.
Does the PUD have 3 districts as well?
They do. The interesting thing is the PUD is not bound by statute like you were to follow the county legislative districts. They just did so because it was cheap and convenient. I don't mean to say the PUD is cheap, but it was inexpensive and convenient for them to just tag along with the county.
And so there are right now our same 3 districts.
They are the same 3 districts that you share.
Same area.
exactly the same 3 districts that you share with them. And I understand it's up to those commissioners when they meet, but I understand that they're going to just stick with the same 3 until.
So as we pay to have this redrawn to make them equal, do we share that cost with the PUD?
You could.
Not withdrawing.
No, let's say in 2021
Well, no,
or
right
tomorrow.
now, don't we need to look at populations now?
No, there's no data.
Oh,
That's the
perfect.
problem.
Okay.
Right? It comes out every 10
I'm
years
sorry,
with the
I thought
census.
there was, I thought we had to look at that.
These were drawn in 10.
In 10?
And they may be redrawn in 20 after the census, but they remain the same in between them.
Or you can redraw them anytime. You can draw them next year or the year after next, however you like.
And Port staff did look to make sure they're substantially equal. And in District 1, we've got 33% of the population. In District 2, we've got 34. And in District 3, we've got 33. So
Yeah, I remember that discussion, but I thought we talked about we're going to have to hire someone to do that.
No.
not till 2020.
In 2020, typically these consultants come out, and I can tell you that in my experience, the Port of Anacortes, I think, who has 5 districts, paid about $35,000, and they look at these guys get the census data and they crunch it for you, and they come back and draw lines.
Well, with the county already new 5 districts, that's kind of already done, isn't it?
Well, no, in 2020, in 2021, you have to look at 3 districts. You have to create 3 districts.
But if we were go to 5 to look at that, that's already.
That's another question. Yes, you could go to 5, but that's a whole nother question that you have essentially till 2021 to decide, I guess.
So before us tonight is, in this particular hearing, because the auditor asked, are we going to stick with these 3 districts for the meantime until something changes? Yes or no?
Right, and this is the public hearing. You vote next time.
We're doing this because the law did not anticipate what happened in Whatcom County, which is it went from 3 districts to 5, and we were following 3. It was just.
The only correction to that is that's not for us tonight to vote on. It's just to discuss.
No, it's
We're
to have a
voting in
public
February.
hearing.
Yeah.
Voting in February.
Yes, okay.
Well, if we don't decide to do it tonight, then we're not voting in February.
Well, that's.
Run that by me again, you went too fast.
Just saying.
Well, there's nothing to decide tonight, though. You're just having a public
just
hearing.
Taking
on
public
subject.
testimony and then we get to think about
I
it.
suppose you could.
Maybe we could just blow the auditor off. We don't have to do this. The law doesn't even.
I think
the
you
law
could do
doesn't
that,
require us to do
Commissioner.
this, right?
As you know, I'm always supportive of complete discretion for the commission, so it's up to you.
Tuesday, February 7th is the date that we're planning on putting it on the agenda unless directed otherwise.
I do believe we can anticipate an effort from citizens in the county to shift to 5 anyway, but in the meantime, this will satisfy the auditor.
Right.
So this is a public hearing, so I guess we open it up
Thank
to
you.
public comment. And we have 2 people signed up. Carol Jacobson.
That guy out there. I just read that article in the Pulse again.
Parachute, he's bailing
You're
out
going to
or
be
what?
against it again. I already know what you're going to say.
Commissioner, are we-
Yes, 3-minute comment period.
I
Thank
found
you.
it on my desk. I don't know why I still had it.
Good evening. My name's Carol Jacobson. I live here in Bellingham. I hope you can hear me. I definitely support your being rather accommodating and going along as you did before with the county. The county spent considerable time last year with consultants drawing out 5 districts. They are being calculated as best as could be with 2010 census data. It would be done, and you would probably have a far happier electorate and taxpayer, because tonight was rather unusual in that you had people here that were not staff. Your meetings are at not the best of times. The video is painful to watch at home because within 10 minutes you're distracted and you're doing other things. This is the place to be if you want to know what's going on. People don't come. And you're running a port and an airport. You have a big job. It would be far more democratic to have 5 people sitting up there. it would resolve a little bit the problem that you three commissioners have, that you have to talk together up there, and that's the only place you get to talk. I understand the transparency is important, but I think the community, the county, is served much better with 5 rather than 3. There was an attempt in 2012, was it? To it was put on the ballot as a ballot initiative, and it
Yes, in 2012, there was a ballot initiative to move from 3 to 5 commissioners.
right, and it failed at 49.19%, which tells me that there's a great amount of interest out there in the community. So you've got a couple of weeks to think about it. Thank you.
Commissioners, so Ms. Jacobson, just to clarify, the commission can't just name 5 commissioners. They would have to make this a ballot item and it would have to be voted again. What we're talking about tonight is the districts that we need to have our next election.
I understand that, and then 3 is fine.
Could you go to the mic? Could you go to the mic, please, so it's on the...
So it would be 3 for this year's election, and then for 2019. It would be a year, maybe 2 years ahead.
I just wanted to make sure you understood.
I understood that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. So Edward Urey here again. So thank you. That presentation was enlightening. Yeah, I guess because when I saw it pop up in the agenda, I wasn't clear as to why that resolution was being proposed right now, and that makes sense as a request from the auditor. But Carol and I thought we'd take the opportunity, since you're considering this resolution anyway, which I see as a maybe a reasonable housekeeping measure, to reopen that conversation about moving to 5 districts, which I know there is a lot of interest in from lots of folks I've talked to in different circles around here. As Carol mentioned, 2012, 49.19% of Whatcom County voters were in favor of moving to 5 port commissioners, and that was before the county decided to, or the voters of Whatcom decided to move to 5 districts for the county council. So it seems like a good time to reopen that conversation. And I guess questions I'm not totally clear on, forgive me, is do you have the authority to put this forth to the voters, or can you unilaterally make a decision to move to 5 districts and at the I granted it wouldn't be this election, but at the next election cycle, and how that process works, I'm curious about. But I do think there's a lot of advantages we can see in having 5 port commissioners. Granted, the 3 of you, it's a lot of hard work. You do a good job. But, if one of you gets sick or is unable to come, then you have only 2 of you, and then there's a lot of potential for gridlock there. Having 5 commissioners, it's easier for you to communicate outside of meetings without being a quorum. Easier for you to meet with constituents who have concerns. Recently we met with a couple of you individually. We couldn't get 2 of you in one room because that would have been a quorum. So I think having 5 could be more efficient in how we all spend our time. Overall, just allow for more voices and representation from the county. So if there's any, cons to going to 5 that you have, I'd really interested to hear what your thinking is. And if in passing this resolution, you do in fact think we should stick with 3, or if maybe we should, at least put it to the voters to move back to 5 or move forward to 5. So, granted, whether or not you adopt the council boundaries or the ones that are redrawn after the next census, or that seems like the easiest way to go is just to keep in line with the same districts as the county council. So interested to hear if you have any, just, a few minutes to talk about this meeting, or before, it goes to a vote at your next meeting. I'd be interested to hear. So thanks for your time.
I have a question for you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Stick around for a question, please.
Sure.
And the folks you talked to, their reasons for going to 5, what did people have to say?
Well, like I just mentioned, it'd be, more voices, easier to communicate with, get 2 of you in the room at the same time and talk about an issue. It'd be easier for scheduling. Allow for, just more balance of authority, I guess. Like what else do you mean?
Yeah. Well,
or you mean, are they partisan interests, or are they just?
No. I just, When I ran for this position, I was asked whether I was in favor of 5 or 3, and 5 would be fine if that's what the people want. Granted, we have an issue with not being able to talk. I think it works pretty well with 3. Some of the things that I want people to remember that they're going to incur more costs to the taxpayer to put 2 more people up here. There's a figure involved in that. I see how difficult it is for staff to deal with 3 of us. I can't imagine how difficult it's going to be for staff to deal with 5 of us. You know, I mean, granted, when you're on the outside looking in, it's a very different perspective. Once you're on the inside here looking out, you understand the complications that 5 will bring, and that will bring more complications. Once again, I reiterate, it's whatever the people of Whatcom County want is fine with me. But caution to those people, don't just think bigger government is better, because that's what you're going to get with 5 people. You will get bigger government right here. And sometimes bigger government is not better. I understand the concerns. I'm just pointing out some of the cons to doing 5 from being up here and seeing what goes on and being involved internally now. I think if you have the 3 of the right people, and whether we're the right people or not, that's for other people to decide. 3 can do every bit as good a job as 5 can, if you have people that are dedicated to doing a good job. And that lies in the hands of the voters. So I would caution people at jumping just because they think the county council went to 5, the Port of Bellingham needs to go to 5. I would caution following the herd off the cliff. Just because someone else does it doesn't mean it's necessarily good for all situations. As I said, I'm open to 5. I'm open to 3. It's whatever the people of the county would like.
Can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
And that is, I'm not wanting to follow the herd necessarily. I'm trying to think of a strategy in which you get more participation throughout the county, more interest in what you're doing, because you're doing a very important job, and I don't think you get acknowledged. There is still a misperception out there that the Port of Bellingham is Bellingham's responsibility and not the county's. And I think with 5 districts for the county and 5 districts for the port, it makes it a little simpler for the regular voter and taxpayer. Okay?
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else that didn't sign up? Yes.
Darren Williams, Whatcom County resident. So in the light of fair democracy and point and counterpoint, as co-author of the position against 5 in the last election, that was me, I wrote that. I think that Commissioner Briscoe touched on many of those, why 5 commissioners becomes difficult. But there's something that isn't being said, and Mr. Schmelik kind of touched on it. The Port Commission is not the county council. It's not a legislative body. It's a body of 3 commissioners which are tasked with operating a municipal corporation. There is a difference. And when we start to expand to 5, that process is going to become more legislative than it is commissioners, making decisions for a municipal corporation. I think that's key in the efficient operation of the port. I also believe it's key, and me being one of a very small number of citizens that interacts at a very close level with the port, you're absolutely right. I cannot imagine trying to interact with the staff and 5 commissioners and have it on an efficient level. So that's my opinion on that side. There's one other thing that I think I criticized the Port Commissioner at that commission at that time for doing. They put it on the ballot. That was the wrong thing to do. I agree. If the citizens want 5 commissioners, then let them go through the process of putting it on the ballot from the citizen side, not the commission. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the money that was spent by the commission to put it on the ballot on behalf of a small number. And yes, it was 49.1%, but it lost. It didn't win. If they want to bring it back up again in 2000, whatever the date may be, then let them go through the process. I don't think this commission should spend the public money to do that on their behalf. Let them do that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Commissioners, any more comments?
No, I'm good on that.
You know, there continues to be a huge amount of misinformation about Port of Bellingham. One of them being you can't have 2 commissioners in the room. And Edward, you can. There you are. All we have to do is send out a public notice. It's not a big deal. In the past, when I first came on board, there wasn't a good working relationship between the commissioners, so the odds of getting them outside of this room into 2 at a time, or even 3 of us, probably the other 2, not me, was probably pretty low. And I think there was a lot of misinformation about how to do that, and maybe even some misunderstanding by the commissioners how they could do that. So if you want to invite 2 of us to a meeting, just let us know. Diane publicly noticed it. It takes a couple of days. You got to put it in the paper. It's not a big deal, right? So we can do that. Definitely do that. There's going to be a process. The question of 5, that's not what this hearing is about. There'll be a process that has to happen, probably take a year or 2 if folks are interested in how to get to 5 port commissioners, but it's not the same. I think, Frank, you may have alluded to this a while back. I don't think it's the same process as last time, because last time there weren't 5 districts to follow. So now there's maybe a somewhat different process if that comes up again.
I believe the process would be the same.
Commissioners, I think the process would be the same. It's either by petition or commission resolution
Well,
followed.
not just that part, but how the commissioners would be apportioned at large, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. Anyway, there's a process.
Yeah, it's a complicated process.
Yeah.
If the commission wishes, I can dust that off and.
Let's dust it off, but not for this, obviously.
Okay.
And my own personal position, just so everybody knows, I don't have one. So 3, 5, doesn't matter.
Anything else? I vote in every election, and I can't tell you how I voted last time, but I would guess I voted against it because of the cost, and it's quite costly. Not the $700 a month the commissioners are paid, but there's a lot of other expenses plus the cost to have it on the ballot. But one item that didn't come up tonight that did in the earlier comment period is the fact that people think we do things behind closed doors now, which we don't. It's all done in public. And if we did have 5 commissioners, we could meet behind closed doors, 2 of us, and I think there would be more of a chance that 2 of you got together and convinced a third, and it's a backroom deal. So I'm somewhat like Commissioner McCauley, I'm ambivalent on it, but if I had to vote tonight on it, I would vote to keep it at 3. Fortunately, we don't need to vote on it, and I would agree with Commissioner Briscoe. I think it should go before the voters. I don't think the 3 commissioners should make that decision, and I do think it should go through that petition process. So that's my 2 bits worth. Any other comments on the public hearing? If not, close the public hearing and we reopen the commission meeting. And the next item is the new business. Commissioner Briscoe, new business. Of course.
Of course. I haven't said anything for a couple of meetings. I got some things racked up here. I know we got some web locker policy issues. This kind of stuff I want to bring to my fellow commissioners' attentions with our policy on who has a web locker and who doesn't have a web locker. We've had about 25 years of, yeah, you can do this, and we'll let this guy in, and we've got businesses operating out of our web lockers. We've got businesses using web lockers that I personally feel is improper. Those storage sheds are for gear storage and use by commercial fishermen. It was to supplement our fishing industry. And it's kind of gone astray. It started, I don't know, back in the early 80s, and it's just kind of gone sideways. And we really don't have a clear policy. And Alan can probably vouch to that we've had several issues. So I would like to, I've talked to both of our harbor masters about this, as Dan Stahl when he was here. And nobody wants to spearhead this because it'll probably be kind of a bloody battle and ugly. So I told them that I would bring it forward and we would work with industry, the Working Waterfront Coalition, as well as the Whatcom Fishermen's Association, and try and sort this out so it works out best for everyone. We also have a little bit of hubbub over this year's lease agreements for the lockers, and I believe Commissioner McCauley met with the Whatcom Fishermen's Association somewhat about it. Basically, it's wording in the document, and some folks not understanding that wording. So I think explanation of that wording will probably clear up some of the problem with that. I just wanted to bring that forward so that you guys
Commissioner McCauley, any
Yeah,
input on this?
I was at the CFA meeting on Saturday, missed the March, but I was at their meeting, and that did come up on the lease agreement. It's not official, I don't think, this new lease agreement. Is that ringing a bell? Oh, Alan?
Yeah, Commissioners, just a little bit of clarification on that lease agreement. That lease agreement was approved by the Commission back in January 6, 2015, as part of a broader package of updating the harbor rules and regulations. It was vetted through MAC. The Marine Advisory Committee did meet and discuss it with harbor staff over quite a few meetings. It was approved unanimously by MAC and then approved unanimously by the Commission. The issue is that harbor staff have gone through and requested all the web locker tenants to fill out new agreements, which was the agreement that was approved back in 2015. And it's brought this issue up. It's very similar to the same thing that we did with renewing mortgage agreements and having tenants renew mortgage agreements. The biggest thing behind this agreement was bringing in RCW 19-150, which provides a less costly method to recoup funds or go back after the customers for lack of payment. A couple of the issues that were brought up that I understood was the 15-day notice for evacuation to have to get out of the locker on notice. That language is the same as in the previous one, before the one approved in January 2015. So a lot of the major issues and concerns that came up is actually very similar language to what was previously. And I think it's working
I don't
through.
remember the month-to-month on those leases, though, and it also would prevent you from paying it in advance for a year.
The month-to-month is one of the big changes. It was year-to-year. The port still provides annual lease payments, annual lease ability with that. They get 10% discount for paying annually. So that is the one change, going from year to year to a month to month.
Are you sure it's 10%, or did we switch that to being it's indexed?
Yeah, I think it's indexed.
It's more like 3%.
I believe that was for mortgage was indexed, but not for the web lockers. It was chosen for the web lockers to say at 10%.
I'm not complaining.
That's a great deal.
I have to agree with Commissioner Briscoe from the standpoint that they are abused. They have a lot of personal household items in them. But part of the reason for that is because they're so inexpensive. They're half the price that it would cost to rent a web locker out or a locker out in the county compared to here. So I agree that once they get in there, but I think this is something the MAC should handle. I don't think we need a separate committee started. I think it should start with the MAC to go through and see what they can come up with. We have that committee. It works well. And I think they should address this issue.
Well, the MAC already okayed this, though.
And this is what was approved by MAC 2 years ago.
Right, but
You're speaking to the web locker policy. He's speaking to
Yes.
the web locker policy.
if there's a change to the policy that we want to make, or we suggest, we take it to our MAC committee that we appoint and have them start through the process.
And what this new agreement does allow the port to do is be able to pursue just those kind of issues to see who's not needing a locker or who's not using it appropriately. And we definitely work with the commission to come up with a better policy on that and through MAC. I will say that talking with staff, all new lockers at this point are only offered to commercial fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
They do get the first priority on those. No lockers are being issued out to non-commercial fishermen at this point.
So I seem to remember this.
Excuse me, can I, while he's on that point, can I, non-commercial fishermen, how about people who charter boats? They still get to use them, do they not?
For available lockers that come open, they're first being given to the commercial fishermen. There are non-commercial fishermen that do have lockers that have acquired the leases over the previous years, yes.
And that's one of the things.
Such as charter.
If we're going to continue that or not, because we do not have enough lockers for the commercial fishing fleet, period.
I see.
So you've got 5 categories in those lockers. So active commercial fishermen, fishermen, I don't know what that.
And then
you got marine uses, marine business. Then you got non, and then there's another. I don't know what the other one is.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the last
So,
one is. I don't have the list of all 5.
When I was talking to the CFA, I asked them if they would take a look at it and see what they wanted, but what I told them I would support is if we would categorize those. And I don't have a problem giving month to month, because I don't want to see empty spaces if we can help it, because I know that was one of the reasons that, you know, there was a shift away. So then suddenly now the commercial fishing fleet is growing a bit, and there's a demand, and now we've got these longer term leases. So I don't have a problem offering the month-to-month leases to non-commercial fishing, but I would like to categorize these so that if there's a commercial fisherman, there's a locker that works with their needs, that there's a month-to-month, and they get a 60-day notice, and they got to go, and that commercial fisherman goes in there. So I think that an actual process of categorizing, I'd like to see a change to that. But I don't know about the annual lease thing. I don't know if that's going to be a big deal with people or not. But
I guess when we say non-commercial fishermen, it sounds like they're rented out to people for their household stuff.
This is why I'm talking, we need a whole policy.
yeah, we can. Actually, that's one of the categories, basically.
Right,
It's
but,
mini stores.
and I agree, it should be someone in the marine industry that needs them down here. And of course, the one that comes up right now, there's one where they're not paying on it and we can't get them out. And so that's probably what brought this to a head. And so my question is, when can we get a non-paying person using a web locker out?
Having this agreement, this current agreement that's been out, that provides us the method to do it. We can do it now, but there is a long, very expensive process that we have to work through to get them out if they're not paying.
And I think that would be the situation in a new one as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very important to me that through these debates, negotiations, whatever you like to call them, that the industry, all factions are involved, the public, to talk about this. I don't want people to think that it's going to come from this commission desk of who's going to get what. I want everybody involved in this.
Absolutely.
Not just the MAC committee. I want anybody that wants to be involved in these talks involved, because it's probably going to get kind of ugly by the time it's all through. Thank you, Alan.
All right, thank
So
you.
we're not talking about lease rates at all on this. This is just policy about who rents and who goes to the front of the line.
Correct.
So if we're going to be consistent with our push to support commercial fishermen, in my mind, they're at the front of the line. So however we get there is how we get there.
The second, I got a few things. So the second thing I'd like to bring up is,
Before we move on, we're not advocating for any change then right now? We're not trying to, okay, there's no to-do. I'm just trying to make sure there's no to-do here for us.
no, we want to, we want to get talks started to form a policy through industry and the public, form a policy of exactly how these lockers are going to be used. And we do have tenants in these lockers that may or may not, should not be there. And that's what we need to clarify a policy so that we know where, everybody knows where they stand. That's what I was asking for.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
We've got a sawtooth reconfiguration coming up in Blaine in the near future. You know, I call the near future not too far away, a couple of years, whatever. I'd like to see those meetings to talk to industry and people involved. I'd like to see that get started sometime in March if we could. I believe we need to get on that task. I mean, it's coming up that we're going to be doing our work up there in, is it 2018 we're supposed to have that?
I don't, off the top of my head, I
think
know it's the next 3 years, yeah.
So we're running out of time fast for deciding what we're going to do there. And the sooner we decide what we're going to do there, we can figure out how much money we got to do it there.
You're talking about a session like we had up in Blaine last summer?
We're working sessions so everybody can get together and hash out what we're going to do. So the staff knows where we're going, and Tamara knows how much money she's got to get out of that piggy bank for us.
Yeah, we'll organize another session up in Blaine.
Yeah, one there, one here, maybe. I mean, so it's convenient for folks, whatever.
You must have a lot of time off. I don't know.
No, I don't have a lot of time off, but if we keep pushing it out, we're not going to have time to vet this to people, and
Don't we have a work plan for this and a budget for work this year?
not that I'm aware of.
What are we doing on the Sawtooth this year?
Either Shirley or Adam, can you come up to the podium and help out here?
Yeah, that is a Marinas thing. Adam Fulton, Director of Facilities.
Marina thing, is that what you said?
Cheryl and I were just talking on the way up here. It's actually the sponsor of the project is the Director of Maritime, or Marinas, who's no longer here.
Yeah, I say he left.
Be nice, Al. He's brand new.
Alan's in charge now.
Do you happen to know the budget for this?
No, I do not.
Yeah. I have to look back at the 2017 budget, Commissioners, to see if that is a project that we are trying for the 17-18 window, or if we were trying to get designed and then do the 18-19 window. It's all about the in-water
Right.
work windows.
The sooner we have it done, if we can get it done now, I mean, the sooner we have it done, then it's there, you know, if we can do it earlier, or if we got to hold it off, we know what we're going to do.
Commissioner's correct. At this point, staff does not know
Right.
the future of that facility.
Right, and I think we need to get this started, I really do. And
Yeah, we'll get something together.
Where's that at in the budget? I'm holding the budget.
Page 122. How about that?
They don't number them.
Yeah, they are.
Not my budget.
I just looked at it.
It's
Strategic
either
budget.
Blaine Marina, or it's going to be under infrastructure, one of the two in the capital budget.
Strategic plan that's on page
I'll tell you, I can
122.
save us some time. I'll just do a quick summary on this and get it to you guys this week.
That's good, because tip-off for Westerns at 7, so let's move on.
What? Basketball?
Thanks, Adam.
Okay,
Basketball team?
I had a meeting with Mr. Lake from Colony Wharf today over a couple of things. We've got some issues over there. The crane pad, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do there. Right now, they have paperwork in hand that says they need to spend roughly $30,000 on dunnage for blocking up under the crane to use it that we bought over there. And about $150 to $250 every time they move that crane in labor to restack the dunnage wherever they're going to use it. We haven't resurfaced over there yet, and this is something Adam may want to speak to. We haven't resurfaced over there yet, but something that I'm very, very big on is our tenant involvement when we're doing major projects. Our tenant over there who will handle the crane, run the crane, move the crane around, and babysit the crane has not been involved with the engineers or port staff on what we're going to do for the crane, the crane pad over there. I see I've got, where did I write it down here, a couple pages back here. Some of the things, the concerns there is the setback, the center pin of the crane will be 32 feet from the edge of the pier. The ratings that the engineers have come up with, that center pin will be 32 feet back. They lose 30% of the crane lift capacity being that far back. 5 feet, moving forward 5 feet, so they're at 27 feet back, drops them down to they only lose 15% of their crane capacity. So I don't know where we're at, Adam, with designing those crane pads, but if we can add more rebar and more concrete there, and get them off of that dunnage. I mean, you need some dunnage, I understand it, to protect your ground cover that you have you're working off of. But when you're talking 12 foot by 12 foot by, I think they said it was 3 to 6 foot high.
36 inches.
Yeah, 36 inches high. That seems to me to be a bit outlandish.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. That work is underway right now, and certainly Colony Wharf will be involved in that. Let me just maybe explain that the purchase of a crane is a process, and it's a sequential process. It begins with programming to say, what are we trying to lift? That goes to a budget. We got the budget approved for 2017 capital work. Here we are at January 24th, and we just had the 7th of 7 trucks delivering our crane just yesterday. So definitely moving fast to get the crane here. The process is to first understand, you have to understand what crane you have before you can design the dunnage for it. Our engineer came back and said, well, assuming this certain allowable ground pressure, you would need a 3 foot high, I think it was 12 foot by 12 foot pad. Well, this particular crane, the outriggers just go out laterally and then press down, and they only have 8 inches of clearance between the bottom of the foot and the ground. So getting up and over 3 feet of dunnage is problematic, if you understand. So, so these things go hand in hand. It begins with understanding our soil pressure and then working up through a design. There's one thing we spoke about even today is that there's not necessarily a requirement for dunnage. We could use the snowshoe concept of a thicker concrete slab and not have to worry about dunnage. Or you can do some hybrid between, and it's a design iteration process to come up with the most economical solution for everybody. And that's underway. We, even this week, are doing the soils work. So again, but we can't do that. We couldn't do that until we knew what crane we were getting. Because again, it's got to be the sequence, otherwise we're having to guess. And then you're going to guess wrong and you have to do it again. So we're doing it sequentially and correct, and we're in that process right now. And you bet we will involve Mr. Lake, and he's been involved with the crane purchase, and it was, I think it was a good process.
Yeah,
So.
no, and you know, when the questions come up in the discussions with the engineers and yourself, okay, what are we going to be lifting, how are we going to lift? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that Johnny on the spot, he's right there, he can answer those questions for you and move it along more rapidly. And I think, you know, those people are very good to work with. They understand what you guys have to go through to try and figure out what they can do.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that it's very important to me that we make sure that we get it right the first time. And I think their involvement can help us do that. Can help.
I am in complete agreement, and I got to say that Mr. Lake and I actually have had I think a good process getting to know each other through this, and both of us want to get it right. None of us want to spin poorly, and so I think the process is working, and I look forward to involving him further.
I commend you on your actions with them and taking up, like, we had a meeting where I brought Mr. Lake over and for something else, and Adam was very forthright with him, and it was a very good meeting, and I saw it set off to something good, and I commend you for doing it. I like the way you're doing your job, Adam.
Thank you for that, Commissioner.
Hang on one sec, would you please?
Okay.
Since Adam's there, I don't want to get up again. So the port has purchased a crane that can lift 250 tons, is that correct?
You're correct.
So regardless of what the folks at C Street Terminal might lift for their operations, would it be prudent to make sure that we build a pad for whomever might want to lift 250 tons?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Sorry. When you're dealing with crane capacity, as Commissioner Briscoe alluded to, you're really dealing with reaches and a diminished lifting capacity at certain reaches for geometric reasons, I'm sure you understand. And you know, the sky's the limit, you know, and it's a matter of practicality and what is really our, I mean, you start to run into other bottlenecks on the site, like.
So are you getting to, how much can we really lift? Because the vessel's going to be a certain distance away from the pick point anyway, right?
Yeah, that's
so
correct.
even though the crane says 250, it doesn't mean you're going to lift 250.
You're correct.
So the pad you're going to build is going to be for that.
Actually, yeah, the pad we're going to be lifting for, the heaviest lift out there is actually not the boats that they'll be lifting, but it's the ramp to get onto barges. And so that ended up being our design case. We're well within the capacity of doing that. I can bore you to death with some very technical explanation.
Make it fast, he wants to watch basketball.
Yeah, that's right.
But BMI mentioned some 200-ton things. So in that case, doesn't matter what the crane lifts, it weighs 200 tons, no matter how much the crane can actually lift.
Plus your crane weight.
Yeah. So are we going to be able to satisfy the demands that a company like BMI if they bring some heavy bridge parts over?
Yeah, I haven't heard 200 tons.
I'm just
in the
making
mix.
things up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm in
Yeah, 'cause I haven't heard 200 tons.
All since Saturday, alternative facts universe here. So, but there's some very heavy things. I just want to make sure. What I'm getting to the bottom line is, I just want to make sure that any investment we make is going to be. It's not just for Colony Wharf. It's not just for BMI. It's for, especially because now we have a quote public terminal which never existed before. So where an operator like Colony Wharf might have been interested in what they were doing, they weren't certainly interested in anybody else. But we need to be interested in any commodity that might travel across that particular facility. So yeah. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Anything else,
Yep,
Commissioner?
yeah, I got a couple more things, sorry. But another thing that was talked about, and I spoke with Rob about this, but I wanted to bring to you guys' attention, we got a water depth issue right in front of that crane pad loading site. We've got humps there, and we've got a table that's probably 120 feet long by 12 feet wide that's not accommodating vessels that need to be there. So we're going to have some discussions in the future about how we adjust it, or if we can adjust it, because we've got deep water on one end of it and deep water on the end of it, and then we got a shallow spot in the middle, and it doesn't work out very well. It would work out fine if there was not armor rock there and the vessel could touch bottom, but that's not the case. And looking at the bathymetrics of it, we've got 2-foot humps down there. It's not flat, and that even creates a worse problem. So we need to deal with that.
Hey, Rob, did you get a hold of Phil's customer? Or Phil?
No, I did not. Yes, I did talk to, I don't know who I talked to. I can't remember his name. I don't think it was Phil.
I sent you a phone number. Did you call him? That's Phil.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so that was Phil then. Yeah, I did talk to him, and, it was pretty much what we determined. There's been some follow-up on that. The draft was probably a half a foot too much for the tide at the time. It was a negative 2.2 foot tide, which is pretty extreme for us, I think, in that area. And yeah, he was hitting the bottom and just was very uncomfortable doing that.
Thanks.
Seeing as how this is where we talked, the ASB pond, we're going to have to make some decisions there pretty soon. So
June's coming
you
fast.
people that are watching, our ASB pond is going to have to be dealt with fairly soon. So we're going to have to do a lot of public hearings on that. And so brush up your thought process on what you folks think we need to do there, because we're going to be making some decisions soon on that. And so I'm sure you guys are aware of that, but I thought I'd just bring it out that we need to.
I'm keeping my powder dry until June.
Why June, Commissioner?
Because you said last year, wait till
do what he
June.
wants? I don't know.
I said I'd stay quiet last year until June.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
You're a man of your word.
Did you forget?
I did.
Okay. All right. Oh, my God. Well, I want to give you time to operate, and, I know that conversation that led to this.
Right.
What Bobby's talking about there's some other players, so, being patient.
Thank you.
Can you tell me what we're doing with the lighting changing and Blaine on the docks? Has that been moved forward, or?
Don't do it.
Sorry, I can't answer that question. I'm
Okay.
not exactly sure at this point.
We can get back to you
Our
on that.
marina, we're supposed to be doing something with our marina lighting, and I was wondering if we were moving forward with that, or?
I can find out about it and let you know.
We'll let you know.
Yeah, I talked to the guy that abandoned us for Longview.
Dan?
Like, who wants to go to Longview? And I'm not a fan of those lights that were that were there that are failing at all.
No.
Because they're completely inappropriate. They're in the wrong place. I think personally the wrong style.
Well, there's too much light escapement.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of spending money to light the universe either. So what I asked him to take a look at was something that was sitting on where you walk and not just flooding everybody. So if there's a way that we can get something that's not, Adam's going to be talking about it. I'm a big fan of the dark sky thing. So, there's no reason to light water
Yeah, were these the upland lights or float lights?
Float lights,
float
you got
lights.
those, and
Yeah,
they're
it's like-
failing at the base.
You
It's
got like
aluminum.
$200,000 in your budget, you didn't even know about it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
welcome to day 6.
What you did,
Give me one more day and I have the budget down.
you did have $200,000 in the budget. I think, yeah, we might be cutting that.
And then my last thing I have to talk about, and I spoke with Shirley a little bit about this today, is the removal of the tent, our port-owned tent at Walsh up there. But something, when we remove that, we need to discuss a small building there for a machine shop, workshop for their welders out of there, because they had a nice machine shop, but we dismantled it probably 10 years ago now, 12 years ago, and something like that. We took it all apart because we thought we were doing something else up there. So I'm going to want to have some discussions with my fellow commissioners about how we can help them get a building there to keep that business rolling. And that's it, Dan.
Revolving loan fund. We own that fabric structure in Blaine?
Yes, we do.
Anybody, any ideas how many square feet it is?
10,000.
Ooh, this might work.
I think we have an interested buyer for it, too.
We do?
Yeah.
Ooh, see, his eyes went flashing, but
But if
that
we-
doesn't mean you can't throw your bid in.
Well, there's just this thing out in the East County that
Oh,
could be,
yeah.
could be a good REIT purpose if it's not purchased elsewhere, so.
Well, we'll keep you informed on that one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I had a Council of Governments meeting last week, and it went as usual. So there was one thing that, there's really nothing to share with the commission, but there was something that I asked Rob to take a look at last year, and they finally came up with it. But there's this thing called the International Mobility and Trade Corridor. It's kind of a wonky thing, but there's a lot of traffic going across the border, and it's in trucks. So John and, I don't know, Dodd was involved in that. Anyway, so Sylvia's shop took a look at what was going across the border, and did you share this with these two fellows?
No, I don't believe we have.
So what
We need to
I'm
get that to
after
you.
is, there's trucks going back and forth, right? What's in them? And where's it coming from and where's it going to? Because if it can stop here or originate here, that would be good for our local economy, and it's driving right past us anyway. Turns out, there's not a lot there. There's a lot of traffic, but it's, it's one truck with that in it and two trucks with this in it. So nothing really is jumping out as a commodity, but I'm hoping we can keep at it and see if there's something that's gonna come from that. Because there's billions of dollars literally billions of dollars of commerce flowing across the border just north of us. So.
And that study isn't final yet. I think we're looking at a draft version of it, so we'll certainly distribute that around, but it's not
But
quite.
something was sent out that showed all the commerce that was going.
Oh, okay, we
across.
we did send that out to
There you go.
everyone.
You email that?
Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
All right, so you've seen it, so that's kind of what that was all about, and hopefully there's something more to dig into and find there, but basically just capturing, it's like the Grand Camp thing, if we can capture just one company, then we can backfill some of the shortfalls, income shortfalls, so.
Okay.
Staying at it, that's it.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Nothing else?
No, sir.
Hearing none, we are adjourned.
You got 4 minutes, don't drive too fast.
Yes, sir.